Okay. Okay, let's get started. Welcome to San Mateo Coastside Design Review Committee meeting. The Design Review Committee, as establishing the zoning regulations, is appointed by the Board of Supervisors. Today is Thursday, April 14th, 2022. The hearing consists of one project only. This meeting is being audio recorded. There are 2 opportunities for the public to speak, including oral communications for matters not on the agenda, and a separate public comment session for each project on the agenda. Please review the agenda to identify which item you wish to speak on and the time of that item. The chair will open public comment session during the public comment period and for each item on the regular agenda. I will first read comments received before the meeting into the record. Then I will ask those members of the public who wish to comment to click raise hand feature to raise your hand to speak on that agenda item. For those joining by phone, please press *9 indicate your desire to speak. Please note that members of the public must wait for my prompt in connection with each agenda item before using the raise hand function. For example, you cannot raise your hand at the beginning of the meeting for an agenda item that's later in the meeting. When you hear your name or last 4 digits of your phone number called, I will prompt you to unmute your account and inform you that you may begin speaking. I will then ask you to state your name, address, and email address for the record. For those joining by phone, pressing *6 will mute or unmute your microphone. The Design Review Committee's decision for item 1 today, if any, will only be a recommendation regarding the project's compliance and not the final decision on the project, the decision of which will take place at a later date. Please note that the approving authority for item 1 will be the Planning Commission, and now the Planning Commissions will be appealable to the California Coastal Commission. Depending on the scale and scope of changes, continued projects will be placed on the next month's agenda if revisions are submitted to the county by the end of the business day of April 21st, 2022. Applicants should note that the continuance status may not be available by that day and are encouraged to take notes of the committee's feedback. And now the next Coastside Design Review Committee meeting will be held on Thursday. Well, will be held Thursday. Sorry, this date is yeah, I'm looking for this date. Yeah. So it's May 12th. Okay. Yeah. So I just confirmed that it's May 12th, 2022. I apologize. And agenda. So item 1 on the agenda is a roll call. So I'll take a roll call now. And now, so first, Katie Kostuik.
Close. We're getting there. Present.
Okay. Rebecca Catkin.
Here.
Beverly Garrity.
Yes.
Doc Machado. Not present. Mark Steckmeyer. Is Mark here in the meeting room? Okay, Mark is not here. Linda Patterson. Okay, Linda is not here. John Stedman. Okay, John Stedman not present. Okay, thank you. With that, I turn it over to the chair.
Okay, I'll just run through the AB 361 resolution. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
The AB 361 resolution finding that as a result of the continuing COVID-19 pandemic state of emergency declared by Governor Newsom, meeting in person for meetings of the Coastside Design Review Committee would present imminent risks to the health or safety of attendees. So we just need a second and a vote that we continue meeting remotely.
I'll second.
And I think I should take a roll call at this point, right?
Just the 3 of us, yeah.
Yeah. So I'll take a roll call. So Katie Kostuik.
Kostyuk.
Oh, sorry.
Yes. I'll tell you each time and then eventually you'll get it because you have to say my name a lot.
Yeah. I need to learn it. I'm terrible with names, sorry.
No
So,
worries.
Katie, sorry, again, Katie Kostuk?
Yes.
Kostuk, okay. And, okay. Beverly Garrity,
Yes.
Rebecca Captain,
Yes.
okay. Thank you. So that's a pass. Okay, then we can continue this meeting.
Okay, I'll just jump into the chair report. The demonstration of scale story poles. So Rumel was working through this document. We were at the point where a survey was going to be developed. This is more long-range planning activity. Glenn, do you know what the status is of this? Has it been reassigned?
I discussed this matter with Camille earlier, and Camille said she's going to work on this, but now she doesn't have the bandwidth to provide more information and update at this point. And she's going to work with the management staff on this and find out how the management will reassign this task. And we'll provide you with the update probably next time in the meeting. And yeah, Camille is working with the management staff to get a response.
Okay, to see how it'll be reassigned.
Yeah, to see how it'll be reassigned.
Okay. All right. Turning the page. We will be working on the design standards update today. It looks like just the three of us, Rebecca, Katie, and myself.
Yeah, and Camille actually asked if I could manage that today she sent me the document to continue taking the notes that Ramel had started for us previously. So I'll do my best to drive and keep us moving forward. And, as with how we started the whole restart of this effort, the goal is kind of to identify what is missing or inadequate or blatantly, not in line with what we want to see in the standards. So we're not trying to rewrite the standards right now. It's more so of marking it up on what we think needs to be changed from content that's there right now. I don't think that we're at the point of creating new content.
Right. All right. Well, that's good that you're clarifying that, because when we started it initially, it seemed like we were trying to create a new document in some ways.
Yeah, I think we were trying to approach it with fresh eyes and a fresh approach, but given the response that we had from county on how they need the process to go and the public involvement in the whole effort, I think that the best guidance that we can give is from our experience of applying the guidelines and where we see why are there issues? Why do we need to be doing this effort to begin with, right?
Right.
And then we'll let them kind of take it from there again, and we'll see what happens.
Okay. All right.
And we're going to wait to start that until you get through the rest of the chair report, right?
Definitely. Yeah, that happens after the chair report. And I guess my comment/question was also, are we comfortable with just the three of us providing input to move forward with it? Or is it important? I guess we can always revisit if somebody joins us for a session and they harken back to an earlier chapter.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good approach. What we will probably end up with at the end is some kind of a summary document that's kind of like bullet points of, kind of organizing the information based on what's lacking versus what needs to be revised, kind of thing. And then everybody can kind of review that, because obviously even in the previous sessions where we started marking up the document again, there's been different people that were present at each time. Chris won't be with us anymore moving forward on those. So, it's going to change hands.
Yes. All right. Okay, so let's move to Cdrc positions. So Glenn, is Chris officially off list now, and has Doug officially applied for the position? Do you know?
Yeah, so I have an update for you. I think Doug has already applied for a position, and Camille is working with Sherry at the county manager's office on the appointment process, and she will continue working with Sherry at the county manager's office, and she will probably provide us with the update later, after maybe sometime this month, once she hears back from the county manager's office.
Okay.
And now regarding other open positions, other open Cdrc positions, we checked the website, the open recruitment website, and it's up to date. So there's a public notice for recruitment on the county's website, and now you list all the vacant positions within the Cdrc. So it's, so that one is has been updated.
Okay.
I had one question for you that really related to this. I know that you're planning to speak at the April 27th MCC meeting, and that you had asked, you know, CDRC members to kind of give you a short little blurb or whatever about why we participate or how we think it adds value. Have you been able to get enough content for that?
No, I haven't, and I'll be doing that after Wednesday, April 20th. I'll be focusing on that after that time, and I thank you, Katie, and you, Rebecca, for your input. I would like to get a little bit more, a few more, if possible.
Do you think that it's helpful or appropriate for Chris to give a
I do.
I do. Such a long tenure.
If he's willing, yeah. If he's willing, he's so I will definitely ask him. Yeah, he was disappointed in the MCC's response to the off-leash work that had been done over time. Yeah, so his confidence level has decreased at the moment. So I think I'm going to put it out there and see if I can get a little bit more, even from Doug, you know, and others. I think the more the better, and I'll run it by you all and see what you think.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. On this next page, the duties of the vice chair that were split between DRO and senior planner. We probably will need to update the contact list and any future term notification letters and things like that. We need to stay on top of that. Do you see that paragraph at the top of the last page of the chair report itself, which is page 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's for you, Glenn, to take a look at that to see where you fit in there, and maybe you can talk with Camille about how that goes moving forward.
Yeah, I'll discuss with Camille, and yeah, so next time we will have a pen.
All right. Okay, and then on page 2, down at the bottom, for this Moss Beach project today, since we have vacancies, the directive was that in the scenario where a community does not have an alt rep, in the scenario where there's no quorum of 2. So in this case, where a community does not have an alt rep, Moss Beach or Miramar, an alt rep from any community can sit on the committee for the given project to make a 3-person quorum. So in this case of the Moss Beach, I'm actually a Montera rep, not an alt rep. So the scanning is done for an alt rep typically to fill
that wasn't really my impression. As like, my impression wasn't that it was meant to be only alt reps, that it was just basically the nearest community representative.
Yeah, the reason
That's how I thought it was too.
The reason for it being an alt rep was to give the alt reps more opportunity to participate.
So are
Okay,
you
so if
saying,
there is a primary, then we would request that the alt rep be the one that sit for the project. Rather than.
Yeah, just to give them more time in the seat.
are you suggesting though then that we don't have a legitimate quorum for today?
No, we're good. We're good.
Okay.
We're good. I didn't think about this until more recently. But that was, and it's not actually really clear in the language. But would you agree just amongst the three of us that it would be good to give the alt reps more time in the seat? As I believe was originally intended.
I do agree that it's good for the alt reps to have more opportunities to go through it and sort of stay fresh and, stay fresh or get fresh and comfortable with what the role is. But my impression and understanding of that whole initiative wasn't the point of it. I think that's, definitely something that's valuable, but I think that the intent was more so just to make sure that there was community representative that was part of those design review discussions. And also it removes some of the burden of all of the review being provided by only the two architects. And there's more of a potential for a tied vote. And so I think everybody felt that having three people.
Well, that's number two. That's number two, where there's, actually, no, number two is no quorum of two. Right, so, right, to avoid a tie vote. Pardon?
Which part are you looking at right now?
The bottom of page 2.
Oh, the bottom of page 2. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so yes, to avoid a tie vote, but yeah, the alt rep, the alt rep was, in my memory, the focus of that scenario. In the scenario where there isn't even a quorum of 2, then it would be the main community rep who has a little bit more time in the seat to work with the remaining architect. So I'm not sure, should we bring it up for a vote again as to whether it's an alt rep that takes the seat where the two architects are present, but there is no community rep? Or is it?
I feel like if we leave the language looser, it just makes it more certain that we're going to have a quorum each time. Although I agree about trying to give the alt reps more time in the seat, but maybe that could just be informally that they would kind of have right of first refusal.
Yeah, I think that keeping the verbiage, I don't know what actually has to be, what has to happen behind the scenes formally with the county for this to be something. It sounded like nothing in the current documents prevents this from happening, was my understanding.
Right.
I don't know if anything has to be specifically written up. So Glenn, are you able to provide us some feedback on that?
Yeah, so I think the current approach is if an area doesn't have a committee representative, then we just reach out to the closest and available representatives and see if that person can cover the review. But it
actually says in the scenario where community does not have an alt rep, which is this case, an alt rep from any community can sit on the committee for the given project to make a 3-person quorum.
Well, I know that's what you've got captured in this document, but what I was trying to figure out is if, I don't know if that was actually the intention when we were discussing it, that it was specifically alt rep.
That was the rewording. Ramel came in and he reworded it to clarify at some point.
So is there something that the county formally writes up?
Doesn't need to come in. We needed permission for it to be the alt rep, but we don't need permission for it to be the rep.
That's kind of bizarre.
Yeah.
I think he needed permission to clarify it to be the alt rep.
So then it sounds like it could be the primary or the alt. So are you asking if it was already approved with the county for it to be the alt rep?
No, I'm asking if there are any objections to it being the alt rep. As Rebecca says, right of first refusal.
Yeah, I don't have any concern about that being, the first right of refusal. But I do like the ability of having it be flexible so that it doesn't have to be an alt rep. So for instance, so what this does say that if, I need to read this more thoroughly, but for instance, if a community does not have an alt rep,
Mhm.
then what would be the scenario? Would we go to the next closest alt rep geographically, or would it still be the closest geographic primary?
We go
community
to the
representative?
next closest alt rep.
Yeah, so I think that the
geographic.
closest primary rep should take precedent in that situation, personally.
You do. So you're not, you don't think it's a priority to give the alt reps more time in the seat?
I don't think that that's the goal of us making this initiative. I think it's more so just to make sure that the project has 3 people reviewing it and that the community perspective is being represented. And so with that being the intention, I think that the closest geographic community representative is going to be the one that's best served for the project. I mean, granted, it's not like we live in a huge community, the mid-coast isn't huge, but the whole
Right.
reason that they are community reps that are for each community is because that is relevant and each community is different.
So if we're changing the language, there was a secondary intention to give the alt reps more time in the seat. And if we're changing that language, then I think we need to make a motion. So,
Beverly, you want to make a motion for the language to specify alt reps?
it does specify alt reps. Do you have the
Okay.
chair report, page 2 in
Yes,
front of you?
So that this is the only place that this verbiage is captured, right? The county doesn't
Yes.
capture it anywhere. It's
Right.
something that it would be a legacy thing that people just have to remember which chair report to even look up, right? So that's why I was curious if something needed to be.
No, it's a practice that we have right now that we did make a motion for in the first place.
Yeah, I think I must have misunderstood the intent at that time. I do definitely.
Yeah, you
think that-
have the priority, which is to have a 3-person quorum, so it's with a community representative. And then the secondary priority was to give the alt reps more time in the seat.
I see. I'm reading it now. I guess I thought that it just meant an alternate representative. I wasn't thinking about that we also have
That's kind of what I
A
thought.
title,
Yeah,
alt rep.
I just thought it meant an alternate rep, but if you think it's necessary to clarify the language so that a regular rep could be there, I can make a motion to that effect. I think that's.
Well, it's
how-
not
I
just
think we have
could
the
be
flexibility.
there. What Katie's saying is she'd prefer that the rep.
The nearest rep. Sure, I agree. Do you want
You
to
agree
make a
with
motion?
the preference for the
Katie?
main rep instead of the alt rep? Because I actually
think
like
You
the
prefer the
idea of
alt rep.
pardon?
You prefer the alt rep. I think I prefer the most flexibility for the committee. And I think Katie prefers the nearest rep.
That's always fun.
Oh, so, okay, so we have 3 different directions here.
Well, I have a suggestion then, since there's just the 3 of us that are present for this meeting right now, which is
Mhm.
a little light for our meetings typically. Why
Yeah.
don't we table this and not make a vote on it at this one? And then maybe we can have that be something that we open up for discussion among more members of the committee at the next meeting.
How many alt reps do we even have right now that we don't have an El Granada alt rep?
Well, we do currently. Doug is still the El Granada alt rep. Linda sits in for Miramar as the alt and Mark Stegmeyer. So we have 3.
Okay.
All right, we'll discuss this again in future. Okay, so yes, so the confusion was justified.
Yeah, because it sounds like technically Mark Stegmeyer should be the one
That's correct. That's
reviewing
correct.
this project today.
That's correct. Yes.
And I'll also discuss this issue with Camille to see if she has any inputs.
That would be great, Glenn.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and I know she's planning to be present for the next meeting as well.
Mm-hmm.
So she'll be there to kind of give us some feedback or like hear at least another perspective on it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so thanks for that discussion, you guys. I thought there might have been some confusion around that. All right. Glenn, we like to keep track of the number of projects that receive building permits in a given year. And the database was updated over COVID. It's not clear if they have the ability to via the database to actually track the number of building permits for like say 2020, 2021 and year to date.
Yeah, so regarding that, I think if you have access to Acela, then you should be able to find the number of building permits issued for a code site. And that is the function is called ad hoc report. Using the ad hoc report, you can find out the total number of building permits issued for properties in the code site in a selected year. So I can provide you with the instruction maybe after this meeting, so you can use the Acela to generate a report and to find out how many building permits are issued like every year. So hopefully that instruction will help you get information. And also my understanding is that when I recently did an ad hoc report using Acela, and now I found out there are like 3 building permits that were issued this year to date. And now, so that may not be a current number because last time I generated a report was like several weeks ago. So what I can do is after this meeting, I'll generate another report and let you know how many building permits has been issued, and also provide you with instruction, and that will help members of the Cdrc generate that report. Yeah, on Acela.
That would be great. We were working on reporting for 2020 and 2021 as well. Does it go back in arrears and allow you to do that?
Yes, it does. But so every time you use that function, it may just give you like all the building permits. It may be a bigger list, and you just need to narrow it down, but I can provide assistance. So for example, if you need a total building permit issued in 2021, that now I can generate a report, and I will just apply filters and use those tools to find out what the number is for all the building permits issued on the code side.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, so I will provide you with the instruction. You can do your own research using that function. But if you need help, if it gives you like a list of like 2,000 permits, I can help you narrow it down. If you need help, just reach out to me, then I'll be able to help.
Did you say you'd also be generating a report or just instructions?
Yeah, instructions. But if you need a report, if you need me organize a report and extract like all the building permits for a code site, then I will be able to help. So you can generate it yourself. If it's clear, then now you can draw your own conclusion. But if it's like a huge list that now you need help with that, let me know. Then I'll be able to provide the information you need.
Okay. All right. Thank you for providing those instructions.
So related to that, I have a question. I mean, since this is something that's limited in the LCP, is this something that it's the role of the Cdrc to be tracking and making sure that permit applications and approvals don't exceed that limit? Because that seems like something that should be somebody's job at the county, right?
So whenever there's a new house on the code site, I think it's planners and maybe the planning commission's responsible to track it. But every time planner review the project, planners are supposed to check the number and find out if they exceed if we allow the new residents, and we will find out whether they will exceed the limit of the total housing unit permitted on the code side. So I think that's a analysis that every planner needs to make, and also the approving authority needs to consider that. And most like a lot of projects, goes to CDRC are for are to get recommended actions, not for decision. But there are some design review permits that require CDRC's decision. For those permits, I think the CDRC may need to take that into consideration. Yeah. So I think that the
No, actually, it wouldn't be the CDRC. It would be the planner who would be the county, the staff planner who would be checking that. Do you happen to know what the number is for 2022 not to exceed?
You mean like the maximum number?
Same, right?
I will need to. Yeah, I think it's the same. It's like 30 or 40.
Isn't
I'm
it?
not
It's
sure.
40 every year.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, okay. If it's
That's what I understand. That would be something that would have to be changed in the LCP if that did get revised, right?
I don't have an answer to that. I will need to check and find out if I have an answer to that.
And Katie, that's just for the COSAD?
I'm not sure, but I would assume that that's correct since the LCP only applies to the coast side.
Yeah, that only applies to cold side.
Okay, so we were trying to check for 2021. And if you look at page 3 in the chair report, Lisa Ketchum counted 22 plus 9 ADUs. And Ramel had counted 15, including ADUs, but these were hand counts before you could actually sort and filter the database. So, yeah, so that's the question.
Okay, and regarding the 2021 number, I can look into that and find out what the number is and send it to the members of CDRC.
That would be excellent.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'll generate a report probably tomorrow or early next week, and I'll be able to provide a number. And if I can attach a report generated by generated in the Asala, that will be helpful.
Sure.
So yeah, I'll provide as much information as possible.
Okay, that would be great, just to help us, you know, as we go through this rhythm of recommending or approving or deciding to approve. All right,
Well, I
planning.
guess related to that though, it's building permits, not planning permits.
Right, it's building permits.
Yeah,
So,
so our approvals really, like, we can approve of a project and then the building permit might not actually get approved until the following year.
exactly.
So our tracking is
easily.
completely irrelevant to that.
Well,
in my
it's not-
opinion.
It's just a heads up just to see it's
Yeah, the volume
data.
of projects
Yeah.
that are moving around.
right. All right. All right, thanks. That would be interesting. And I guess for me, the question is, are ADUs exempt from that 40 count? Do you know anybody? Or are they
I
part?
haven't heard anything about that, and I don't know if there's any specific verbiage in the state law. That would be something we could probably ask Will about, since he's the one that kind of spearheaded the
Mhm.
ordinance and worked through it all with legal, but that's a good question. It is a housing unit, but I don't know if the state law gives them the ability to still restrict that in the LCP.
Right.
I mean, you would think that with the changes that they just had to make to the LCP to allow up to 800 square feet of exemption for lot coverage and floor area ratio. I haven't looked at the updated LCP, but that would be, I guess, where they would have to specify if it's excluded or not from the 40 housing units.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay.
Yeah, so regarding that, I can reach out to Will and our long range planning section to find out if ADU counts toward the total
Thank you.
number of housing. Yeah.
Thank you, Glenn. All right. Well, that's all an interesting discussion. All right. Planning inspection requests. Glenn, do you have updates to either number 1, number 2, or number 3?
Sorry, which page are you looking at right now?
It's page 3 in the chair report.
Page 3, okay.
Planning inspection requests.
Okay, so regarding the item 1, I think I reached out to the planner on this project. Final project inspection has not yet been final. Yeah, so this project here, sorry. So regarding this, I think I sent out something to the project planner after the last meeting, but I haven't received any updates yet. So regarding that, I can circle back later in this meeting. Yeah, so I'll find out if I receive any email correspondence from the project planner. And now, so regarding planning inspections in general, so how we make sure that like constructions are in compliance with Cdrc conditions is every time we receive a building permit, if we see there's a design review, if it's a design review permit associated with it, that we would require a final. We'll do a plan check to ensure that they meet all the Cdrc conditions. And after that, we will add the planning final to the record. So we'll require them to meet all the. We'll require a virtual or site inspection prior to the building final, so we can make sure that the constructed home is in compliance with the Cdrc requirements. So that's how we do it. And if a project is, if a public believes that a project was not constructed per the Cdrc conditions and recommendations, that any citizens can reach out to the plan department and we can investigate. And again,
Right, so for number 2, what is the status of that project? There was a new planning final to verify the project. You know where it is in the pipeline. The applicant was informed, and
yeah, I can do a quick check right now to see what the process is. I just need to log into Acela and find out what the status is of the final inspection by planning.
Is that APN that's under number 2? Is that for 912 Columbus? Or is that different?
no, it's different.
Which one is
Okay,
that?
there are 2 different projects. Okay.
Which one is the APN one?
No, I don't know.
Yeah, I can look up the number right now, and the application number, I believe it's BLD 2019-00999.
0 what?
00999.
Mm-hmm. And what's the address?
The address is 100 Vallejo Street, El Granada.
Mm-hmm. And what is the applicant was informed that there was a new planning final to verify the project. Do you know what the status of that is?
Yeah, I'm checking it right now. I don't think they have completed the final planning inspection yet. I don't think they have completed it. Give me one moment. So, okay, so regarding this project, that was final, last year. So that was final last year, and I don't see any planning inspections done for this project.
I wasn't aware of this inspection request, but I figured maybe this one came up when I had to miss a meeting back in November, I think it was.
Yeah, so this project was final on August 28, 2021. And there's no planning inspection done for this project according to the seller records.
You said this, it was 100 Navajo?
Yeah, 100
Vallejo.
Oh, Vallejo.
Yeah.
Do you know what the issue was with it?
You mean the issue with the project?
Not you, Glenn, but anyone remember the issue?
Yeah, I'm trying to look it up on Google Maps right now.
I'm gonna look in my file too. See if I have.
Oh, I think that's the same one. That's the same one as the palm tree one, is number 3, isn't it? I think that's that project. And my understanding from the previous meetings was that
okay.
basically the landscape changes that they've made were done after final, and that there's not really anything that can be done about enforcement once they've finalized it. It wasn't part of their design review, and it wasn't done before they finalized the project, I guess. There was another planning inspection request that was brought up previously. We started discussing it, and then we let it go because the address of the project is 846 Columbus Street. And that was the one that had a big the basketball hoop and like a big concrete driveway that had been poured and a bunch of work that had been done and none of it was permitted. And I remember when we talked about it previously, I had been wondering how this was being shown in the county records because there was apparently a violation of some kind. So Glenn, I don't know what is noted in the system for that property, but the house is actually pending sale now. And
Again, the address again?
yeah, it's 846 Columbus Street.
And that's different from the APN 047?
Yeah.
Wait, before we jump to a new one, Katie,
Mhm.
Yeah.
staff is aware of an additional new structure added since November 2021.
For which
Permits
address?
will be provided to legalize, does not appear to meet zoning as constructed.
Oh, I didn't hear about that part. But yeah, I think that's the same APN. That's the Alhambra.
Well, it looks
Vallejo
like
one.
Alhambra, Vallejo, palm trees. Yes, I think you're right, where the building permit was finalized.
Mhm. So I guess number 2 and number 3 should probably be combined for
Yes,
clarity.
yeah, I just deleted the number 3. Yeah.
Structure. Okay, so it sounds like staff would have needed to reach out to that owner and try to legalize a structure that was added, but it doesn't meet the zoning.
Mm-hmm.
So legalizing something that doesn't meet the zoning doesn't really sound quite right. It sounds like it would be something that needs to be corrected and removed, right?
Yeah, so it sounds like if it's something, if they constructed something that's not in compliance with the zoning or regulation, that's probably that could be a zoning violation, and the staff needs to investigate it and also determine if there what the options are and find out what the options are. Maybe they can legalize, and so they need to correct it by either legalizing them or removing them if there are any zoning violations.
Right. So has that
Right.
has that process already started? Because this has
No,
already
it sounds like it's dead in the water.
so Glenn, this is kind of on your list now, I think.
Yeah, so this is on my list now, and
Okay.
yeah, so I'm going to look into this. I'm going to talk to Camille and the project planner. Maybe they have more knowledge about it, and now I'll find out what the history is and what we have been done on this project. And after that, we will find out how we are going to investigate it, how we're going to encourage the owner to correct the violations.
Right. Did you say it previously had been final building inspection August of what?
So I think you're probably referring to the project at 100
Yeah, that's the same place. Yeah,
Okay.
August.
Yeah, August 28th, 2021, the property passed all the final inspections. Yeah, so the project
Yes.
has all the final inspections, and now they got final sign off on their building permit.
Got it. Okay, this one probably fell through the cracks. Thanks for investigating it, Glenn.
Yeah, and now we'll look into it, and now we will provide updates after this meeting.
Right. All right.
So
Katie,
along those
then you had
lines-
another one.
Yeah, so there's this other one. I'll share my screen really quick because we've talked about this one in previous meetings and it was before Glenn came on. Do you remember this one? Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yeah, I see your screen.
Yeah, so
When was this one reviewed?
this one, it's not one that was reviewed, but it was a violation issue.
Oh,
So
okay.
this property owns, let me see if I can go back to. This property owns this lot. And you can see right there, this is a big concrete,
Oh, yes, I've seen that.
yeah,
Mhm.
driveway and a basketball court. And they had done a whole bunch of like landscape stuff here and put
Right.
out like plastic, and none of that was actually permitted. And so my
Mhm.
understanding from Ramel was that they had been contacted and that there was an open case on this. So I don't know when something like that happens, if there's notes in the system on the project or not. But the last time we discussed it, the property had been up for sale, and I had asked the question, if there is an open violation or something like that on a property, how does that come into play when the property is being sold?
And you're showing me a structure. So what properties for sale?
So it's this house,
Yeah.
and that house
Selling.
also owns that lot next to it. You can see this is the concrete right over here where the driveway is.
Mhm. Are they selling both properties?
Yeah, they're sold together,
Uh-huh.
or at least initially. Let's see if it says it in the description on this one again.
Yeah, so I'm checking the records in Acela to see if we open any investigation records in Acela. And so regarding this, I'm not seeing any violation records and this properties. So I'm going to talk to Camille and the project planner to find out if they're aware of any prior communication with the property owner. And also in response to your concern with the possible property sale. If after the property is sold, we can still investigate it and if there's any violations, then we can ask the new owner to address them.
Yeah, I was just curious if a property can be sold while there's open violations. I understand that there currently aren't any, and based on the lot size that they're showing here, it doesn't sound like they're including the other parcel with it. I haven't looked up the APN for the other parcel, but originally they included photos of that other parcel with it. So it could be that they broke it off and decided not to include it in the sale. And I guess in that case, it wouldn't be relevant. But I was just curious just to understand if there is an open violation on a property, you know, for instance, this one right here, which that's the one that we were talking about, 912
Right.
Columbus. That one, we know that there's violations currently, but they haven't applied for their final yet. So like if these people wanted to sell this house, well, I guess it would have to be a project that actually has the permits closed out. But if there's a property that has all the permits closed out and then there's a violation and they've done something that they're not allowed to do, is there anything that prevents the sale from happening?
I think the county, especially the planning department, we don't regulate property transactions. People can sell property to another party, even there's violations on it. Yeah, but they just need to disclose it. So I think that's a like a property transaction requirement from a state law or like other level of laws. But the baseline is that the county planning office don't regulate property transactions. And yeah, so as part of, I believe as part of the escrow process, there the owner is obligated to disclose any violations to the new owner. Like the new owner can, based on the disclosure, the new owner can, yeah, the new owner can make their own determination on whether they want to purchase the property. But the county planning office cannot prohibit any property transactions, property sales.
So I guess the answer is yes, it can be.
Yeah,
But we don't know the status of this property with the driveway on it and the basketball court. So you'll let us know about that, Glenn?
Yeah, and so let's go back a little bit, sorry. So
Right.
we're talking about a few properties. So first property is the 100 Vallejo. So that project, I'm going to get back to you on that one. And there's a property at 912 Columbus. So that's a separate project. And
Right.
so there may be some violations on it too, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
Ramel already has photos and has documented the violation. He said that they have not applied for their planning final. Or no, they did their planning final.
Planning has final.
And the planning finaled it like a long time ago, a year and a half ago, something like that. And then, but they have not applied for their building final. But after their planning final, they added a whole bunch of decks and exterior stairs and things that they weren't allowed to do or that weren't part of the design. And then there's also a lower level that has been getting developed since then. And then what was brought up recently also is that since they haven't finalized their building permit, they should not be having occupancy, but they're living there. And they've been living there for quite some time. And in the last meeting, they confirmed that they do not have temp occupancy.
Okay, so regarding those issues, I'm going to talk to Camille and the project planners for those projects and find out history, find out what the issues are. And after that, I'll be able to find out how we can deal with these issues appropriately through appropriate processes.
Thank you, Glenn. Okay, I have discussion ADUs in the chair report still. Are we all comfortable with the ADU regulations and where to find them and et cetera? Rebecca, Katie, do we need to have this listed?
I don't really think it needs to be part of our ongoing discussions and chair report.
Okay, so I may.
Yeah, it's not in our purview, right? So.
Right.
No, it was just to help us stay informed, so I can just put it into the attachment section, just for the record. All right, and our next meeting, as we discussed, is May 12th. Okay, anything else, committee, regarding the chair report? Otherwise, I'll open it up to public comment.
I didn't have anything else.
I don't
So,
have anything.
just as a point of clarification, now, Katie had a question. Why was the date March 10th on it and not April 14th? And that's because it's the report of our last meeting. So that is for the record. And now we discuss at this meeting, 14th April, issues at present. And that becomes the date for us to review once I make the changes for our next meeting. So we're clear about the dates and things like that now.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And then Glenn, I'd like to open it up for public comment.
Okay, we're now opening public comments for oral communications for matters not on the agenda. If your hand is raised, your name will be called for this item. I will lower your hand after you speak. Those joining by telephone can press *9 to raise and now raise your hand. Press *9 will mute or unmute your microphone once you are given permission to speak. Yeah, I don't see any raised hands. And yeah, so for those who would like to speak, now I'll provide a few more seconds in case there are others who like to raise their hands to speak on this item. So I'll give 10 seconds. So there are no more raised hands. Please indicate if you would like to close public comments, Chair.
Let's close it for public comment, and I pass the chair to Katie Kostiuk for the design review regulation update. Do we need a break of any kind?
I think I'm okay. Do you guys need a break?
Are we about to launch into a 2-hour-long conversation?
Well, at this point, it'll be
it's an hour and a half.
I might take a quick, can we take 5?
So just a reminder here, let me check the time for this for the first item on the agenda.
It's
4 p.m.
4 p.m. So that I don't think the applicant will join this meeting before 4. So because we put 4 p.m. on the agenda. So I'm not. I think we should come back at 4 probably.
Oh no, we're going to be having a discussion now of the
We
design
have
review
a
standards.
Design
Remember,
review discussion.
Okay. Yeah. Design. Okay. Yeah. We haven't finished that yet. Sorry.
yeah, no, we
Yeah,
just,
sorry, can we just take
Okay.
5 before we're gonna be sitting back here? again
Yeah,
for an hour and a
take
half?
5 minutes.
yeah,
Yeah.
Glenn, can you stop recording for 5 minutes and we'll come back at like 2:36ish?
Okay.
Okay, great.
Sounds good. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess let's go ahead and dig into the design guidelines, and where we left off last time was we had just gone through the streams and other drainage features section. So continuing that, I guess ridge lines, skylines, and view corridors would be the next part. this doesn't really, I don't know how much this
Could
really
you
needs to
share
be
your
revised.
screen with your
Oh.
doc?
That would be helpful, wouldn't it? There you go.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so let's just, maybe I'll zoom in a little bit so you can read it a little easier, and then we can look at this and see if there's anything that needs to be changed or updated.
Let's see, ridge lines. Are the images accurate at this point?
Yeah, this is a corrected one that we're marking up. So they're saying, don't clear the trees and put it at the top of the ridge line, but, you know, kind of have them blend more organically with the terrain.
Yeah.
Good.
Seems
Yeah,
good.
Yeah, I don't really think anything in this one would need to change, other than obviously any kind of reformatting that happens graphically based on everything else. Agree?
The Cabrio Highway Scenic Corridor. I think it's helpful to define this up in the prose of the paragraph.
Mhm. So is that, is the Cabrillo Highway Scenic Corridor, is that actually a zone?
Yes.
And now we have a GIS layer for that, I believe.
Pardon?
We have a GIS layer we have a GIS layer in our GIS system that outlines the corridor.
Yeah,
It's
so I
not
don't
buffered,
know
it's
that we need to define this. I guess if anything, we could just add a note that says refer to planning GIS map.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that where it is? Glenn, is that what you said? The GIS map?
Yeah, it's in the GIS map, but it's a polyline, it's not a buffer zone, but so I wonder if the CDRC wants to identify the width of the width of the buffer.
It's not an objective number, is it? Is it an objective
no.
number or is it a map?
It's a map. It shows the polyline of the Scenic Highway in our GIS.
Great. So we can just point to it.
Yeah.
Try to make it at least graphically the same. Why isn't it doing that? Maybe they use a different tool. Okay, well, apparently I'm not gonna be able to make it look like Ramel did. Okay. I guess I can try to make it look like this. That doesn't look like it at all. Oh well. Enough, right?
That's pretty clear though.
Yeah, that's very clear.
That works.
Easier to read than the original one. Okay,
Yeah, it's good.
so the next page. Okay, relationship to open spaces. In some areas of the mid-coast, the neighborhood's proximity to designated open space is one of the factors which defines the neighborhood character. And special attention should be paid to those transition or buffer areas where residential and open space land uses meet. So this isn't, I mean, it's not very prescriptive. It's not really telling you. It just says that special attention should be paid.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have any thoughts on.
Well, it's already managed pretty heavily by planning's requirement for biological reports, depending on the character of the open space.
That
Neighboring
just says
open
that
space.
the structure placement and design shall harmonize with the natural setting with regard to massing and materials. So I don't know. I mean, I don't really know what we would add to this, but it doesn't really, I don't really feel like it adds a lot of value either.
Yeah, I mean, it opens
Yeah.
the door to things like amount of window walls, tinting for bird life.
Yeah, I mean, because obviously if you're backing up to open space, then I think most people would want to design with all of their windows facing the open space as much as possible, right?
Right.
Right, I mean, I think just the standard to consider how it will look from the adjacent open space is good and provides us flexibility to address anywhere that we feel like that is problematic.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, currently, except for the designation of things like riparian corridors and where you can build and not build, I don't know if there are any requirements for accommodating wildlife or any natural elements beyond that.
Well, so I guess this is one of those things, when we're going through this document, I kind of try to imagine what kind of a project would come to us or has come to us in the past where the guidelines were insufficient or where this was applicable. You know, so my knee-jerk reaction regarding would be more so related to materials, but I think, you know, if it's going to back up to open space, I think having it be something that blends and has, you know, more natural colors would be appropriate, but that's more.
So the word that's missing here for what you're discussing right now is colors. We have materials, but not.
Yeah, but it also actually doesn't say that the design should blend with the landscape, or, you know, it just says that it shall harmonize with the natural setting. That's pretty subjective, which I guess is good because it does give the committee the ability to, you know, try to evaluate each project on a case-by-case basis. I'm kind of thinking about, there's these houses down at the, oh, what's that trail? This is not in our purview at all, but what's that trail that's south of the Ritz on the coast?
The Cowell Ranch?
Yeah, the Cowell Ranch. So like down there, you've got this big open space, and then there's these kind of farmhouse style homes that are there that are stark white. And they don't blend or harmonize at all with the open space. So is that something that would be concerning to the committee? Is that something that you guys think looks appropriate? Or, you know, like if we think of an example like that, what would we want the guidelines to do in that type of a situation? Or maybe that's not where the direction we should be going right now with this anyway, if all we're doing is marking up where we have seen problems. Have you, Beverly, you've been on the committee longer.
That's a good point, Katie. I think the farms were there before the trail was designated.
Well, I guess what I'm wondering is just, you've got more tenure on the committee than either of us. So in your years of evaluating projects and, you know, seeing what's come through the committee, even not in your community, have you seen relationship to open space be an issue that we weren't able to address with the guidelines?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, we could address if these properties were just being developed or they were coming in for permitting. And they were in our purview.
Yeah, so like which
color based on the color section.
Well, I guess what I'm wondering is the projects that you're thinking of where you have seen issues with the design in relationship to open space, what was the issue? Like, how did it present itself?
It wasn't so much massing, it was more materials and color.
Okay, so for this, maybe just adding materials and colors.
Maybe just the word color, yeah.
Okay.
And the rest was sort of taken care of by other.
Okay. Does that seem okay for you, Rebecca?
Yeah.
Echo. Okay.
Yeah. I think we can add the word color. I was a little unclear if we're like you said, just revising or adding, but. we
Yeah,
can
like
safely
is
add
it
a word.
deficient or is it not, right?
Yeah.
Right, so that was helpful when you said, our real intention here is to identify what is blatantly missing, inadequate, but our intention is not to create a new document.
Yeah, so maybe having this word missing, that has been something that you've experienced in the past that was a deficiency and it would have been helpful. I
It
think that's
would be helpful.
Yeah.
Great.
But, we should take a closer look at the color section too, materials and color.
Okay. Okay, so next section, complement other structures in the neighborhood. Most building on the mid-coast takes place on infill lots, vacant parcels next to developed lots with existing homes. As such, careful attention must be paid to the placement, orientation, and design of new homes and additions to ensure that they are complementary to other homes in the neighborhood. Privacy. So I'm not going to read all of this. I think, are you all able to read this okay and review it while we're?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm reading as we go.
Okay, great.
So we've had a number of issues with this already. Rebecca, Katie, with several projects. This issue of privacy seems to take a backseat quite often because we deal more with the massing issues and other siting, massing. So I think it would be helpful to give this a much closer look to see what's important about it.
I mean, the projects that I recall this issue coming up, it seems like the focus has been on obviously windows and then decks and high traffic areas in the project. I'm thinking of one in particular where there was a side deck that there was a big neighbor concern about. But it does feel like the standards are addressing that and locating, orienting, and designing high activity areas and patios listed so they're not adjacent to low activity areas on adjacent properties. That language feels pretty good.
Yeah, number 2 especially feels like it hits the mark. I'm just thinking that we have backburnered this privacy in favor of prioritizing, larger issues on projects.
I think part of the reason that we haven't, I think that we've basically prioritized it when projects have come up when there was a neighbor concern. So if there's somebody who was concerned that the proposed design was an issue for their privacy, when they speak up, then we've addressed it kind of on a case-by-case basis. But I think the only way to really be able to give it more attention without it being brought to our attention by the party who feels that they would have their privacy impacted is if the drawings required you to be providing, to basically document. And I know that there's other municipalities that do this, where they require you to basically document the wall that faces each side of the property. So like if it's an infill
the
lot,
wall of the neighboring
yeah,
structure.
like if this is the proposed house right here, you'd have to show this wall on your site plan to be able to show the relationship between the windows and the proposed design and those windows.
That's a really good point, Katie. Yeah, because it's like I do feel, Rebecca, to your point, that the language in the standard box is perfectly adequate. However, it's almost seems like more of a suggestion. It's, that we need to bring up, which usually takes place after, after we've already brought up other issues. So I think that's good, Katie. Yeah.
Okay, so that wouldn't be something that's
So
the
I
guidelines,
just-
it would be the checklist basically of what's required in a set of drawings.
Yeah, without a community concern being brought to the committee's attention.
Yeah,
I would add the word community,
without a,
community.
right here, community
Yeah.
concern.
Yeah,
Well,
I would say neighbor concern.
sure, neighbor.
but is that onerous though, to require people to then have to locate, their neighbors' windows? Because, you know, that requires the cooperation of the neighbors to allow you to measure their property and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, from what I know that, let's see, where have I had to do this? Palo Alto requires it. I don't think Menlo Park requires it, but I know Palo Alto requires it, and I've had to do it for projects, and you have to kind of like do your best estimate. It's one of those things, sort of like the surveyors have been recently capturing the ridge height of adjacent properties, which has been super helpful. Particularly if we don't have demonstration of scale. You know, a surveyed height in relation to another project's surveyed height is really, really helpful, because obviously they've got to have a top of ridge elevation certified by a surveyor during the process. So it might be possible to have that be something that the surveyors roughly capture, because they do capture the approximate footprint location of adjacent houses.
Right.
often.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a good thing too. I feel like, obviously it's the kind of thing that's easy enough to capture on a site visit. I feel like we have had some projects recently where the architect, or like the firm on the title block is out of state, and I kind of wonder whether they've even made site visits, but maybe
Yeah.
that's a thing to be discouraged.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's tough, you know, if you are not, if you haven't ever been in the adjacent home, you don't even necessarily know if you're designing
Right.
high activity locations adjacent to low activity locations.
Yeah.
So that could be one of those things. Maybe that's another, let's see, another approach could be that the applicant needs to have talked to those neighbors and shared the plans with them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the neighbors do, I mean, they are distributed the plan sets, obviously short notice before.
Yeah,
the
it's like,
hearing.
it's already like when it's so late in the process that any concerns can't really be addressed easily at that point, right?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly try to be attentive to those things about neighbors' windows as part of the design process. I just don't want to overburden people with having to provide information that may be hard to get. Yeah, it's great.
Mm-hmm. Just early, the spelling of the word early.
Thank you. Early. When you work in AutoCAD and Revit for so long, you end up typing everything with only 2 fingers. I can't type to save my life anymore. It's really easy to transpose the letters when you do that. Okay.
Yeah, I think that would take care of my concern at least.
Okay. Yeah, and I think the diagrams are good. They seem pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We good to move forward?
Sure.
Yeah.
Maybe we already got through part of this.
Views.
Yeah, so this one is views, and then we had talked about that they're not protected. This goes back to one of the earlier notes that we have that's already captured, talking about a way to graphically distinguish what is within our purview and what is not, so that the public has a better understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think other than the fact that that needs to be clarified graphically, I don't think we had any comments about this section before.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Except pointing out that views are not, other people have pointed out views are not protected.
Yeah, and I think, didn't it, they say it said it in here? Private views are not protected by existing regulations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's already captured, but graphically, maybe it just needs to be highlighted a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Move forward.
Sure.
Okay, elements of design. Did we go further than this? I think we did. Okay. I'll let you read this and then we can start discussion.
Okay, just an umbrella view. Why is privacy?
I think privacy is before this because it also relates to how you site the house.
Oh, okay, site planning and structure placement, sure. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yes.
Hmm. I don't take any issue with the standards as laid out for relationship to existing topography. I do think just in that first section, building mass, shape, and scale, like everything they say is here is correct. Like likewise, long blank walls appear more massive than walls with spaces and corners that create shadows and architectural interest. But I think that this section is one of the areas where we run up against some difficulty with more modern homes.
Mhm.
And I think that there are styles of a home, like that project of Stewart's last month, that do have kind of these long boxy forms, but it's maybe appropriate to some styles or approaches more than others.
I wonder if it would be helpful, and this would apply to a lot of different sections, or it could be a blanket thing that is in the beginning of the whole standards or just this section. But I feel like, you know, based on what we had happened with that review, I was kind of thinking, and we might have talked about it then, that we could have something that says that if an applicant feels strongly that their design is best supported by deviating from the standards, that the approval is subject to the discretion of the design review committee.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of like saying, you can bring something in front of us at risk that does not meet these standards, but it better be a damn good design. And it's going to be up to then you're basically walking into the subjective area of design review at your own risk.
Yeah,
I think that leaves us.
It gives the
Or the
applicant the
committee.
ability to have their creative freedoms, and if they really feel strongly that they can't accomplish their design by following the guidelines, they can bring that to us, and we do have the discretion to approve it. But those are going to be very much on a case-by-case basis, and that is when you're going to have a subjective design review. So for instance, you know, Camille and Ramel have been pointing out that we really need to be commenting on these projects only in relation to how they apply to the standards. So in that instance, that would be us having the ability to say, okay, you're going to bring us something that does not meet these standards. And at that point, we are doing a subjective design review.
I feel like that would serve the situation we had last month well, but it frightens me a little bit to open it up to have something in there that then people can be like, well, you know, we just think this is a great design, so this is the reason we have it.
Yeah, but at that point, they have to sell it to us. Then the committee has to also agree that the design is strong enough that it's warranted to deviate from the standards. And I would say that we would also probably, if we did do something like that, we would want it to also include something that says that if there's major neighbor concerns about the design of the project, then we need to take that into account. And it's going to be more difficult for us to support a design that doesn't meet the guidelines if there is community opposition.
Sure.
So that was just a thought that I had on how, because that is something we run into. There's times where, you know, we are grasping at straws to try to find a way to help them meet the guideline without messing up a design that's a great design but doesn't meet the guidelines. And, you know, like I would say, if it's a great design and it doesn't, you know, make it feel massive or out of scale to the rest of the properties around it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there is a place for some language around simplicity of forms can be appropriate to certain styles of architecture. I mean, the language is kind of guarded here. It does say simple forms often appear more massive and larger. So, and again, I don't want to get into adding a whole lot of new stuff if we're just supposed to be reviewing here, but I just did want to point out that I do feel like that sometimes facade articulation and these massing and boxiness concerns work against more modern projects. And B, that, you know, you also see projects where it feels like people are really sort of like chopping up a design after a continuance or something to try and meet the letter of the guidelines and not always improving.
Yeah, and it doesn't improve the project.
Yeah.
Rebecca, I think your language worries me less than suggesting that we might in any way be arbitrary. So you said, for example, simple forms often appear more massive and larger, while homes with more variety in their forms appear less massive and often more interesting. Can we put the however, simple forms, though appearing more massive, which can appear more massive and larger, may be appropriate for certain styles of architecture. And I think that may take care of it. And that way we're not, it's in the context, it's in context.
Yeah, I wouldn't even have to say simple forms can appear. Go ahead, Katie.
Can appear more massive.
Isn't that just as subjective though?
No, because what we're saying
specifically to a certain style.
Right, we're relating it to certain styles of architecture.
Okay, so can you tell me how you'd like this to read?
Which
simple
can
forms
appear more massive and larger, may be appropriate for certain styles of architecture. That's my take on it. What would you say, Rebecca?
I'm just not sure we even need which can appear more massive and larger. I might just say simple forms may be appropriate for certain styles of architecture. And maybe this is not the place, but maybe here or elsewhere we then say, and may be allowed in order to achieve a unified design.
Okay, and may be allowed to achieve what?
A unified design?
Yeah, may be allowed to achieve a unified design. Yeah, I mean, I think that is more direct for what we're trying to go for. Right?
Yeah.
Are you okay with me adding at the committee's discretion?
No.
Because this is so subjective. Somebody can easily say, well, my style of architecture, this is appropriate.
I know it's tricky.
You know, it's kind of like the part of the zoning ordinance where it says that we can choose at our discretion to increase the height limit of a project from 28 feet to 33 feet. This is that sort of same gray area where, you know, when we've had projects come to us and they're asking for that, we've had to say, like, you know, if you're going to ask for a special exception, there better be a really good reason for it, and it needs to be really supported, and it is at our discretion, and we can say no.
I think we have to keep ourselves out of the language of the standards. That's my hesitation, Katie.
I'm wondering if maybe here in this top place of elements of design, maybe just isn't the right place to add this nuance, because I think we're going to hit this again when we get down to facade articulation, and maybe there could be more surgical language around simplicity of forms in modern.
Yeah, I mean, I would say
design.
based on these standards, I don't think that this is really as much
Well, that's
related to.
topography, but building mass, shape, and scale, I think if we're providing an introduction, I would put it here and in the facade.
Mhm.
Likewise, long blank walls form more massive.
Yeah,
Or maybe we don't even want to say certain styles of architecture. Maybe we want to say for modernist architecture.
sure. Be specific, that's the only place where it comes up and makes sense.
What, modern or modernist?
I think it's modernist because modern is like
More
a
specific,
time
yeah.
So we could
period.
just say
Just-
modernist architecture, not modernist.
Yeah, just
styles.
modernist
Modernist
architecture.
architecture, yeah.
So then if someone really wants to come and be like, this is a Bauhaus inspired design, then, if they're gonna stick to it, then that's a little wiggle room.
Great. I think that'll do it for now.
Okay, I'm gonna leave something in there just saying, Katie brings up the question of whether or not
Sure.
it's subject to the design.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I think you could say
Whether or not to include,
subject to.
well, it is subject to the committee,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
whether or not to,
right.
you might want to put quotes around that for inclusion in the actual document. Subject to the committee's discretion, just quotes around subject to the committee's discretion.
yeah. Well, I guess it's a question of they're deviating from the standards, but we're changing the standards, so maybe
Yeah,
it's not a deviation.
Yeah.
Say if this is a revised standards. What do you think of that?
Well, just whether or not we should put it in there.
Whether or not we should put what in there?
It's not a deviation if we do put in simple forms may be appropriate for modernist architecture.
Yeah, my only worry is that if we put that in there, then we're basically we're giving applicants the ability to come to us with boxy, unarticulated designs and
Well,
say,
then-
hey,
then-
this is modernist architecture.
Well,
and
then
do we
can-
have to get back to the definition of modernist architecture? Like, how do we apply it?
Yeah, maybe we need to define it elsewhere.
Okay.
If you go up to the modernist, yeah, right.
I have to say the deeper we get into all these nuanced concerns, the more I feel like, are we really the people who should be doing this? This seems like a staff responsibility.
I'm gonna be one of those people that says, with all due respect,
Uh-huh.
all due respect to the county staff and how helpful they are with so many different things. None of them are architects.
Yeah, it's true. Okay.
And that's been a big concern that we've had. We've
Mhm.
run into where some of these things that are left to the planners to review and see if they're meeting, like, if it's a good design or a bad design or whatever, like the people who are working on the guidelines, I think it is important for them to be design minded and to have the verbiage and the experience and to have the experience also of seeing the good, the bad, and the ugly of what has come to the committee and why this document is even being updated.
Right, and these are just suggestions, right? Everything's gonna get run by the lawyer and run
Yeah,
by-
all
Yeah.
of this is apparently going to be a public outreach effort that then, these would be the suggestions from the committee. And then the public will also be able to comment on that and whether or not they think that these are appropriate. So this is just our take on feedback that would be
Okay.
included in that public outreach. We're not writing the document right now.
Great.
Yeah.
Great, I don't want to write the document.
Yeah, well, we already went down the road on that. It was a whole bunch of wasted effort and time.
Yeah, this is year 3, Rebecca. Can you go
Yeah,
back?
I know you guys have been deep in this before I even joined the committee.
Yeah, and it was in conjunction with county staff, but apparently, when we brought it to, you know, Steve Monowitz and who else? Joe LeClaire, I guess.
Right.
They were kind of like, why are you guys the ones doing this? This needs to go through this other process. And we were like, wait, what? You guys have known about this that we've been working on this. So it was very confusing and frustrating.
Right. Yes. All right.
This is an
Okay.
interesting part I was just reading. While projects proposing the use of either manufactured homes or stock building plans are not prohibited, such projects may encounter difficulty in conforming. It's funny because we've run into that recently, where we've had projects where they were trying to design it as prefab, and they were using that as a justification for not meeting the guidelines. And I don't think that that's a good enough reason to not meet the guidelines.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's good that this is captured.
Sure.
We'll make sure that we reference this specific section next time, saying that, you know, they should be prepared to consider design changes when necessary to comply with the standards.
Right.
So that's good. All right, what else? Did you want me to wait to go on?
No, but you know what's weird? This bottom line between the do this and not this.
This?
Like, yeah, there's no line necessary. It's strange. Anyway, okay. No, it's the way the whole document was formatted. All right, go ahead to the next page. It's not important. Yeah.
Neighborhood scale, that is actually something that we have run into. And this is one area where I feel that we've had trouble a little bit with the guidelines. And it's been primarily when it's a new 2-story house in in a neighborhood that's mostly 1-story houses, or more so. What we've run into is the scale of a project when it's a substandard lot. And I don't know the solution to that, but we've run into that quite a lot.
Or even a regular lot.
Yeah, and the project is completely out of scale. So for instance, with a substandard lot, if it's 25 feet wide, you're never going to be able to build a project that is appropriate to the rest of the neighborhood scale if all the rest of the properties are standard size or larger. So I don't really know.
So you're talking about a situation where you end up with a smaller than the rest of the neighbors.
Yeah.
Project.
Yeah, because that's a different scale too.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
it's funny because this one specifically says new and enlarged homes. But obviously it's new and enlarged homes, not just.
Well, do you think it's problematic if a house on a substandard lot is smaller than its neighbors?
Well, we did have members of the public that had concerns about that previously, and they were upset because people were going to build on a 25-foot wide lot and had the opportunity to purchase the lot next to it and make it a standard lot. And then obviously there's the financial implications of all of that. It's not like money just appears, but there were people that were concerned because they were saying, look, there is the ability to have a standard size lot and home here. I don't know that that falls under our purview at all, but I guess what I'm wondering is when we do have instances like that where the parcel sizes vary greatly, how do we deal with that in relation to neighborhood scale?
Well, there's that case, Katie, smaller lot, smaller home. There's the case where there's a single story neighbors and multiple, a 2-story or 2+ story new build. And then there's the case in the future, potentially like SB9, where standardized lots are allowed to have multiple residences built on them.
I don't know a lot about that ordinance yet, but does
It
that,
does, it's not, we are not currently,
it's not
Is.
applicable to the coast, to the mid coast as far as the county.
right, but it is lurking around the corner, just like ADUs cropped up. Very
Yeah.
quickly, it's lurking around the corner, and so.
So how does
Right.
SB9 impact properties in relation to, so obviously like with ADUs, there's specific exemptions that allow the property owner to exceed the max FAR and lot
Right.
coverage. Is that the same, like, would that also happen with SB9?
Yes, it looks like it. It looks like it to me. The point is, it's, yeah, to exceed, and definitely larger structures on standard lots next to other standard lots with single residential structures. So I'm just not sure how we want to.
So SB9 basically just allows all different types of residential zoned properties to be multifamily.
Right.
But does it, is it up to a certain limit
Mm-hmm.
of like the
I
number
believe
of
so.
housing units? Do you know what it is? I don't know a lot about it,
No,
but understanding that, I don't know that we want to address it yet, but while this whole process moves forward, maybe we just need to, maybe I'll make a note on this page to say like, consider the impact of SB9. If it becomes,
SB9 like legislation in the future for
Yeah.
mid-coast.
I mean, I do know I'm working on a project right now in Moss Beach where we will be building a new house, an ADU and a JDU all on one property. And the coast side rules are written to allow the ADU to exceed FAR and lot coverage for an 800 square foot ADU. I suppose there are, you know, bigger properties where other things might be possible. Certainly from what I'm seeing, 3 units is totally maxing out what's possible. I don't see how anyone could ever get to 4 on a standard size lot, even if it were allowed.
You mean in terms of number of residences?
In terms of total number of units. I know that 3 is possible, and I doubt that 4 is possible on a standard size lot.
3 standalone or 3 residences?
No, so a JDU has to be attached.
Within the volume, yeah.
Yeah, within the volume, the ADU could be a separate structure,
Right.
presumably. But it's still very hard to fit, you know. I don't see how you could fit more than that unless you have a very big lot.
so understanding that these things are ultimately going to continue to evolve, you know, addressing housing concerns in urban areas and, you know, even kind of less urban areas like where we are. I don't know how we address that because I know, for instance, with the ADUs, I have seen other municipalities add a lot of if-thens. So they say like, if you are exceeding the 800 square feet, for instance, that you are allowed to have by law, then you have to meet these other criteria. If you're going to exceed the 16 feet in height, then, so they're able to add other discretionary requirements if they meet a trigger. So it seems like that might be something that's possible, but we wouldn't have anything to do with any of that decision making. And so I guess these are just things that we might want to just capture to say, hey, like we want to be thinking about this as this document evolves, because this is going to take years for this document to get revised. And in that amount of time, there might be more evolution that happens with that type of legislature. So I could just say something, you know, like consider potential triggers that could be discretionary requirements if minimum state law thresholds are exceeded, etc. I don't know if I'm capturing that right, but
Potential is spelled.
yeah.
The
really wrong.
mid-coast, applicable in the mid-coast, consider potential triggers that could be. What do you mean by discretionary requirements?
So that's where design review would actually start to apply again. And that's what I've seen happen in other municipalities as they've incorporated the state law for ADUs into their local ordinances.
Mhm.
They have added these conditions where they're like, yes, you can have this, this, and this that the state law says that you are entitled to. However, if you exceed that, then we are able to put these additional restrictions on how the project looks.
Oh, so why don't we just put CDRC requirements as opposed to discretionary?
That could,
Yeah,
Just so that we understand,
that could,
could be CDRC requirements.
subject to CDRC review.
Just triggers that could be subject,
CDRC requirement.
CDRC requirements or standards. Design standards. If minimum state law thresholds are exceeded. Yeah. What about this standard number 2? That's listed here on this page. This, I don't think we ever,
Yeah, that has never been applied.
no.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like the height limit.
Like
kinda
the buildable
controls a
envelope.
Really flat lot.
Covers it. And you know, if you split level a house, or I mean, you could have easily 3.
Yeah,
I don't think this, I'm not sure what the point is.
I agree with you. I think that that's something that could be eliminated. I like the way standard 1 is written. I mean,
Yeah.
so the thing Katie raised earlier, I feel like people who object to bigger homes, like there's a 2-story home on my block that's going up right next to a 1-story home, and it really feels, overshadowing. But I think that the concern around smaller homes is just around people's concern about their property values coming down if there are kind of lower priced projects on their block. And I don't know, I guess personally, I don't feel like that's something that the standards need to address.
Yeah, so if we delete that, boy, that last sentence, we've had to employ the last sentence in the discussion of neighboring scale. We've had to employ that frequently.
Katie, can you just say section 2, just so that it's clear that it doesn't mean the whole section? Thank you.
Parenthesis
Let's say
2.
standard 2.
Yeah, standard 2.
Okay. All right. Do we think we're good on this page?
Yeah.
I think so.
Second story. So this was a big one recently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's so prescriptive. The diagrams are good. But
It's funny because I've had a lot of applicants that have argued that the reason that they didn't do that was because structurally they need a continuous shear wall, which is actually a very relevant to bring up. But I think that they use it as an argument to support their design, because at that point, most of the time people haven't engaged structural yet when they've gotten to the CDRC. But
well, and also, I mean, structural engineers can design to your architecture.
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think like standard B makes sense to me. Standard C makes sense to me. Standard D, I guess, makes sense too. I think A and E feel potentially overly prescriptive. Just speaking as someone who loves a cantilever.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. Did you say no to D, Rebecca?
I'm fine with D. I think split level designs make sense on sloped lots and are certainly worth considering, and it's only saying consider. So I think it's E that I feel like,
Do you think that we could elaborate on that and say unless the architecture, again, that's getting into that subjective gray area.
right. I mean,
Sure, I would
thing where,
repeat
like,
that. Yeah, I would repeat that. Because it is a problem where large areas of lengths of upper story overhang or cantilever, if it's
Yeah.
not a modern design, it is definitely a problem.
Yeah, and I mean, I know on the design that I brought to the committee last month, I mean, I didn't, but someone in my office did. We agonized so much over the very small amount of overhang that we had because of this standard. So it didn't come up, I think, at all as an issue, but I feel like that was a thing where personally, I felt like I was like designing to the standard out of a concern around that massing instead of just doing what I thought would be the best design.
There we go. That's what I wanted.
So yeah, I do think that overhangs and cantilevers can be appropriate to more modern designs.
Right.
And can be interesting.
Katie, can we drop the second half where Katie asked the question?
Yeah, I was gonna edit this. So
Cantilever designs may be appropriate for modernist architecture.
less. But yeah, I was gonna say unless, but
Funny,
yeah.
there I feel like modern might be better than modernist in particular, but because I feel like there are a lot of more contemporary or deconstructivist things where cantilevers would also be appropriate. Or yeah. And cantilevers where critical to a unified design or something like that.
Yeah, that really helps to tie it into the unified design.
And I like that we say maybe allowed. Maybe I
Yeah,
can-
maybe, yeah.
Right, exactly.
Because this is the thing that came up on that project, the applicant's name was the Prairie Style project too, where we're kind of like,
maybe.
we need to know what's, like, we need a style.
Yeah, like you have to be able to give us a strong argument for why this architectural style, you know.
Right, and for what it is, like, what is it? What are you?
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think they, okay, we'll go down that road. But
And then, so what about standard A?
Maybe we could just say whenever feasible and appropriate to the architectural style.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. You see where it says discussion?
Uh-huh.
So I would almost remove it from there and put it as standard A and say locate the second story toward the center of the first story wherever feasible, resulting in a more balanced, less boxy, you know, and do that. So
Just move the discussion over to be
move the
standard, right?
discussion to the standard and make it more of a directive for those reasons. And instead of locating, you would start with locate. Okay, and then the rest of the grammar would, be changed accordingly to
Yeah.
flow. I have a problem with D.
What's the problem with you? But
It seems superfluous. You know, saying consider split level designs. But I do agree with locating the two-story portion of the home oriented toward the other two-story homes.
yeah, but then again, if you do that, you go back to this other part where it says it appears unbalanced if you place the second story over just one portion. I could just capture that, you have some concerns and that this requires more thought.
Oh, yeah, you know what, now that I'm reading it too, I didn't realize that it was like, I misread it the first time. Where homes are located between 1 and 2 story homes. I was just thinking of it as suggesting split level homes, like where the topography indicates, but yeah, I mean, I guess it does only say consider, so there's
Right, but
language, but I agree with you. I don't know that that's really the best way to mediate that condition.
It's oriented, the two-story portion oriented as opposed to placing, that actually where I think orienting it is the better choice of word to for this particular circumstance.
You think oriented works here?
I do, because it doesn't mean to place it over it means sort of focus it more toward the two-story in the design.
I guess in the context of our effort, do we think that this standard is helping or hurting in any way?
Well, I think that this situation does present a conundrum to the applicant, if they would feel it necessary to present an argument as to why they went to 2 stories. So if we say, yes, you can go to 2 stories, just be sensitive to the single story home and orient it toward the 2-story home. So just by saying it, we sort of avoid another step in their design potentially.
I wonder if maybe we take out, like, what if we did this?
My main point is split level. I don't think we should be advocating for split level designs. I just don't think it's a good idea.
What if we said consider split level designs?
I don't want them to ever consider split level designs personally.
but that's again very subjective, right? So we could say,
yeah, but why would we be recommending them?
Well, a split level design can reduce the massing.
But maybe we address that, and it may be addressed already in topography with stepping up the slope,
But this isn't regarding topography.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I don't think a split level design, like if you got 1-story house on one side and a 2-story house on the other side, I don't think a split level design is a brilliant solution to that. Yeah. And anyway, if it's the right solution to the situation, then the applicant will bring us that. It's not like we're saying oh, we're not
Yeah.
gonna approve split level designs, but.
Yeah, maybe talking about split levels is just too prescriptive to begin with.
Yeah, I don't think that's what's, I think standard D needs to be about where new homes are located between 1 and 2 story homes.
Mhm.
I think that's what we have to figure out.
I think we
and
can say we're, in that situation where they're located between 1 and 2 story homes. Well, this is the right language, but pay careful attention to shading out the smaller structure or to respecting the light and airspace of the smaller structures. I mean, I don't think anyone's gonna,
What about
Yeah,
this?
yeah.
What if we revise standard A and said, locate the primary portion of the second story towards the center of the first story and away from property lines whenever feasible, particularly when the adjacent property is 1 story.
yeah,
Oh, yes, thank
yeah,
you.
yeah, that's great. I think that's all we want is to try and be suggesting that we don't build a 28-foot wall next to a 16-foot house.
Yeah. Because that's when it's less appropriate.
Wait, so we've replaced standard A with this last paragraph, so you might want to go back to that box and say, and add, particularly when the adjacent property is single story.
Yeah, should I just say combine with standard A?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, because we're not writing the language right now.
Mhm. And then just,
That's
oh,
fine.
Bluebeam, it looks so good. And then maybe, yeah, on D, just cross it out or just write,
Mhm.
eliminate standard D, address concern in standard A.
Yeah. Replaced by new standard A, yeah. Yeah, fine. Good.
I think that definitely helps a lot because that helps us support projects that don't step in if it's in the right location. You don't want it to be towering over a single story house right next door, right?
Totally.
Okay. All right. Lowering the eave. This almost seems like a standard that should just be in the other one, but it's a little different, I guess.
Where are you?
Lowering the eave. It's very prescriptive. Like, I think this standard could just be part of the second story.
Go back to that next, yeah.
Yeah, unless, right, for sure. We don't need to pop this into the roof section.
Right, and this is really specifically about, it's interesting, this is specifically
Right.
about when you're adjacent to a 1-story home, which I have to say, I don't think I ever noticed about it before.
Right. Yeah, I don't know why this was elaborated so extensively.
Wait, where did you see? Oh, this part is talking about.
Yeah, there's like two sets of illustrations and a full discussion and standard. I think we can just add it to the standards on the previous page.
Or would that be F?
Yeah.
Well, I'll just say add it because they're going to be renumbered because we're taking D out.
Yeah.
Second story. Well, it's not second story location.
Pardon?
It almost. That's
I'm
tough because
sorry.
it really is more about the mass and scale. than about the second story, but it is about the roof of the second story. Do you still think it makes sense?
It is
under-
about the roof of the second story.
Maybe this shouldn't be called second story location. They should just be second stories.
Right, right. So it's delete all other material.
Yeah, I could just say, you know, diagrams can be relocated if helpful. Because that's all stuff that's gonna get worked out later, right?
Right, and delete separate section.
Yeah, I'll just, this part, take this out.
Mhm.
Remove this section and the. Good?
Sure.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah,
So I always thought the daylight plane facade articulation thing is interesting because wall articulation is one of the standards,
Mm-hmm.
which is a form of facade articulation. So it's like if you meet the wall articulation part, then you don't ever need to do the daylight plane part. And I guess it is worth considering whether or not allowing the facade articulation option in lieu of daylight plane is appropriate. I know that when we started this talk years ago, I remember Stuart bringing up concerns about how daylight plane is impacting green building. And so we've got this solar requirement now. The daylight plane is literally to protect daylight for neighboring properties.
Mm-hmm.
And if people don't honor the daylight plane and they choose facade articulation, then that could impede the ability to generate solar on neighboring properties. I remember that being something he brought up that kind of
Right.
resonated with me. And I was like, oh yeah, like I can see why. And so it's like, why would facade articulation ever trump daylight plane, really?
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's a really good point about solar.
Yeah.
And yeah, it should be possible.
Yeah, because we've
Both.
already got wall articulation is covered elsewhere.
Yeah,
Let's see, let me just read through this and see. Oh, the other thing, I don't think that the front and rear setback lines, I saw that in here and I was like, what? This is the only place I've ever seen a daylight plane where you can choose if it's going to apply to the front and rear or the side setbacks. Front and rear, I don't see how that makes sense.
I mean, I think that's kind of weird too, but I guess I just imagine there must be parcels on which one is the obviously right location as opposed to the other.
Because like, you know, the front setback or the front property line is always by code definition, the shortest property line. So like, you know, I have a project right now where this is actually, we're having the entrance to the house on this side and it's a corner lot. And this is still the front setback, but like the fire department required that the address had to be assigned on the street because the entrance is on that street, but this is still the front setback. And because of that, the front setback and the rear setback, those are always 20 feet, which means you're already going to have more protected daylight. The reduced side setback, that's where the daylight plane is really the most important, right? Because that's when there's going to be less space for the daylight, like if it's this, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Sure.
So I think for me, I think that the that choice should not exist for the daylight plane.
You think it should be the same for both, or it should be the stricter?
I think the daylight plane should always be the side setbacks. Now, where it gets challenging is if you have a lot that's not a rectangle.
yeah.
I
I wonder if the project planner should be the one to determine for each application where the daylight plane would be applicable.
I mean, honestly, the planners are forgetting to even ask if they meet that criteria most of the time.
Mhm.
I don't think that it should be left up to them. They've got pretty full plates.
And this is Glenn. Let me, I have something to add to it. So whenever we receive a application, especially in some combined districts, applicant can choose the daylight plane option or facade articulation option. If people choose the facade articulation option, that daylight plane design is not reviewed in the planning process sometimes. So the facade articulation is reviewed by the Cdrc.
Yeah, so I think what we're discussing is possibly removing the facade articulation option and saying that daylight plane should always apply.
Okay. And now, okay, so and please note that if we make that change, and the zoning regulations may need to be updated.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually part of the zoning regulations, this whole
Yeah, that's part of the
document.
zoning regulation.
Yeah,
The,
that would be
the whole
updated at
book
the
is
time.
part of the zoning regulations, Glenn.
I'll say that again, please.
The whole book, the design review standards are part of the zoning regulations. The whole-
it's one of the sections of the zoning
Yeah,
regulations.
some sections they include the daylight plane options and the facade articulations.
Yeah, so I think for, I could be wrong, I would have to pull up the zoning again, but I think that daylight plane or the design review districts for the mid-coast, I think this is the only place it's captured. Let's see, I'll just pull up real quick. I look into the municipalities.
The daylight plane shall be measured from the setback line of an existing upward 20 feet then inward.
Okay, so this is S17, which is what a lot of ours end up falling under. So we've got blah, 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 setbacks, parcel coverage, blah, blah, blah. Living floor area. Building height. Services. Okay, so it would have to get changed here too. Yeah, which is fine because the whole, I mean, this is a revision to the zoning anyway, so that could all be packaged together. Yeah, I've never really thought that made much sense. Because
So your first concern, Katie, is that it be measured from the side only.
I definitely don't think that the daylight plane should be applying to front and rear property lines because those have much larger setbacks. So you're already getting more daylight protection.
So why don't we ask that question to begin with?
Okay, so we'll say daylight plane. This may Does that make sense?
Well, sides, it's considered side setback lines. Side setback line.
Property line.
Oh yeah, it is side setback.
Okay.
Okay, and then the other thing I wanted to just capture here was about facade articulation. So do you think that there's any value in that if we already have, like, how would facade articulation be
Well,
different?
before we drop down there, can we go to the details? The combined length on any building side does not exceed 40% of the length of that building side, and the height.
Where is,
A,
oh,
yeah, does not exceed. Do we agree with A, B, and A and B?
That does seem kind of prescriptive.
Because, I mean, what is it really asking for? It's asking,
it's allowing daylight plane protrusions.
right, in either protrusions or insets. I mean, I don't think we've really been applying these two.
But I think it's because every time a project doesn't meet it, they just say, we're doing facade articulation. And then they don't have to prove that their daylight plane is met.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, let's jump to, and let's just consider all these in the same thought. Let's jump to facade articulation.
Hey guys, I just want to point out that we're at 3:55. So this
Right.
will be our
Right.
last.
5
Yeah.
minutes,
Yeah, and actually, I do need a little 5 minute.
a little
lunch
break, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, my question is, let's differentiate between facade articulation and wall articulation.
Yeah, I'm with you, Katie. I think that the daylight plane is a standard that should be met, and that all of this that's in facade articulation should be kicked to wall articulation.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we could actually delete number 2. You know, if I sat down and calced A and B of daylight plane option, I'm not sure. Is it effective? Is there another way we can say it? So we would delete number 2, and we would delete the whole dark box.
Mhm. So this is redundant.
Unless it is this facade articulation, or the way it's said, to replace A and B of daylight plane option.
Well, maybe what I'll say is, you know, consider the applicability of these. If the daylight plane becomes a regulation that you can't get around with facade articulation. Oh, hang on a second, guys. Sorry. Hi, sorry. Toddler interruption. Okay. So do we want to just leave this for next time to talk about?
I think so.
I think that's
Yeah,
probably best.
sounds like a good idea. Why don't,
Yeah, I guess
A
so.
and B, yeah, discuss A and B.
And I'll make it a different color so that we see it.
Yeah,
Okay.
or just if you can highlight A and B, if you don't mind.
I can cloud it.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. So 5 minute break.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Katie.
Okay, Glenn, can you please pause recording for 5 minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. Thank you.
It says recording in
Uh-oh.
progress. Okay, so me, Glenn, ready?
Yep.
Is the applicant, is Ed Love in?
Yeah, I think they're here. I just made them panelists. So property owner and the project architect, I have promoted you to panelist. Please accept the invite.
There he is. He should be on in a minute.
Yeah, so I see Mr. Love and the property owner here with us. And would you like me to add anyone else to panelist? Mr. Love and the Mr. Sonderach? No? Okay, now we can begin.
Okay, let me start my video. Oh, no, okay. Hello, Ed, and how do you pronounce your name? Sundaraj? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, you're muted. Please unmute yourself.
I said, just call me Sundar. Sundar and
Sundar.
Hema.
Okay, Sundar.
Hello,
All right.
Beverly.
Hi, Ed.
Hi.
This is the consideration of a design review recommendation for the construction of a new two-story, 2,757 square foot, single-family residence with a 517 square foot attached two-car garage on an 11,586 square foot legal parcel per subdivision X6E3202, associated with a Hart hearing level CDP. The project involves the removal of one significant tree and only minor grading. The CDRC will not render a decision, but will make a recommendation regarding the project's compliance with design review standards. A planning commission public hearing will take place after April 14th, 2022. The project is appealable to the California Coastal Commission. The project was scheduled for continued consideration from the January 13th meeting. Application deemed complete March 22nd, 2022. Project planner Glenn Gia, bjia@smcgov.org. And the owners are Akamape and Irma Sundaraj. The applicant Ed Love, PLN 2021-00267 on Reef Point Road, Moss Beach, APN 037123560. Ed and Sunday, you will be reviewed by myself, the Montero rep, Rebecca Katkin, and Katie Kostyuk, the two architects. Ed, would you present the project?
Okay. Are you going to be putting sheets up on the board?
Would you like them put up, or you can, you can put them up? What's your preference?
I'd rather have you put them up, I think,
Okay,
because I
Katie?
don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I can share, but you'll probably see some of my markups, so forgive me in advance for that.
Okay, let's just start with the site plan.
Start with the site plan, okay.
Which is sheet
We got it. Just look at the screen.
0.03. Yep, thank you.
Yeah.
So you can see that the house is sort of two wings, one of them pointing to the northwest, one of them pointing to the southwest. And the concept behind that is those are sort of the two view corridors from the site. Looking past the house at 165, which is down a bit lower than this lot. It's a large lot, over 11,000 square feet. We are, the lot coverage, all of this is on the cover sheet, but that's okay. I can just read it off. The lot coverage is about 25% of the lot, with the 35% allowable. And the floor area, 3,274, comes up to 28% of the lot area where 53% is allowable. So it's a nice big lot, over 11,586 square feet. Almost a little bit over a quarter of an acre. So we have a lot of room here, and later on we'll get into the landscaping, and Blue has done a nice job on it. Blue sky. So back to the site plan, the two wings oriented to the northwest and southwest to take advantage of the views. And driveway coming in from where the gate actually is right now to the property at the junction of Reef Point and the driveway that goes back to 150 Reef Point Road. The site plan pretty self-explanatory. There's an entry, as you can see, on the ground floor to the lower floor. It's a flipped house, as we have on the coast quite a bit. The living area is upstairs, bedrooms downstairs, and we'll get into each floor plan as we go along. Two-car garage, permeable pavers, nice landscaping project. Trees along the east side, where the east side of the site faces the back side of homes along Arbor Lane. And we left the trees along that side. The only tree that comes out is a tree in the corner. It's tree number 1 on the plan. And that's a tree that's at about a 45-degree angle, and it doesn't look very healthy. And it's actually somewhat compromising the growth of the 70-inch cypress, which is further along on the back property line, which is a very healthy and very high trim tree. You can see the drip line there, large drip line. So I would say that's it for the site plan. Should we have questions as we go from sheet to sheet, or wait till we are at the end?
No, just give another 10 minutes worth of intention presentation.
Okay. Let's go to the first floor plan, which is A 1.01. Very good. And that's the bedroom level, obviously, and the garage level. Sundar and Hema will be having lots of friends come from India visiting, and his son is getting married, and they will be visiting there too. So these are the accommodations for son and new wife coming up, and other visitors from both here and in India. Two smaller bedrooms facing southwest, and the larger bedroom facing to the northwest, and a family room, laundry room, dumbwaiter going up to the kitchen. And up on the second floor, the master bedroom suite oriented to the southwest, catch the morning sun. Nice sized bathroom and walk-in closet. And the kitchen and living and dining room facing to the northwest, where the sunsets will be. There's a stairway going up, an exterior stairway that Hema and Sundar would like to have for guests that would come in and not have to go through the lower level, and would just come right up the stairway to the living level up at the second floor. So that's just a brief explanation of the floor plans. We can look at elevations. That's the top one is the elevation looking straight on at the garage. And you can see lots of windows facing northwest, the deck around it, and the exterior stairway going up to the second level. The lower elevation is looking from the driveway that goes back to 160. And at a bit of an angle. Everything's sort of oblique here. And these are the views from the northwest and southwest sides. Up in the upper one, you can see where the PV panels are. Lots of shed roofs these days to accommodate photovoltaic panels that everyone well, some are required and many people want more to get their houses self-sufficient as possible. So that's, there's a section, move to the section. Two more elevation, yeah, okay. That explains the way the house works a little bit better. You can see the storage area over the garage in the top section. And yep, right in there. And the stairway going up. And the section cut the other way, showing the sloped roof pointing out towards the northwest, looking through the kitchen. So that's a quick walk through the house.
Thank you, Ed. Very briefly, between the first submission that you asked to be continued, I did notice that you lowered the roof line.
Yes.
Were there any other major changes?
Not really, no.
That was the major one?
Yeah.
Okay. Katie, Rebecca, do you have any questions?
Yeah, since I'm driving, I'll ask a couple that came to mind just while we were on this sheet.
Okay.
Is this a legend?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So for that. And then I see that this is an existing 7-foot redwood good neighbor fence. I was out at the site earlier and it looked like it was falling down. And it was shored up with some pieces of wood. So since you're providing new fencing over here, and new fencing over here and here, I was surprised to see that this was going to remain.
Oh, I thought that one was in pretty good shape, but of course, any repairs or replacement that has to be done to it would be, of course, done.
Yeah, I walked over along here and saw that it's basically being propped up with some angled pieces of wood that are literally just kind of wedged in there to keep it from falling down. So I was a little bit curious at the different height. So this one is going to be 4 feet. This is 4 feet. This is 4 feet. This is obviously existing. If this has to be replaced, would the intention be for it to still be 7 feet tall, or would it be 4 feet?
No, it would be 7 feet, just as it is.
Okay. What's the reason for the other fences to be 4 feet rather than 7 or 6?
The one along the road on the right side is 4 feet now, and we were just going to replace it at the same height.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be considered the front of the lot.
Which property line is considered the front?
On the right side, it's the north property line,
Here.
and that would be considered the front of the
Yeah,
lot.
so that one needs to be lower.
So that's got to be 4
curious
feet.
with this one being separated from, the driveway and this other residence. This is a little, kind of driveway and road. So I don't necessarily, I could see why keeping that one lower might be nice for more light to the house. But I was surprised that this wasn't going to be a little bit taller for more privacy between the properties.
That one could be 6 feet, yeah, and both of them could be 6 feet. Kind of leave that up to you folks and Sundar and Hema.
Okay, so Sundar and Emma, Emma, am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, do you have any particular preference on that? Is there a reason you would prefer a shorter fence?
That aesthetically it will look nicer, we thought.
Okay.
Yeah, and we also did not want to, like, if someone was, enjoying the view, we didn't want to have a very tall fence to block anyone's view. So we thought, privacy is one concern, but if you're looking on the south side, the rooms there, we didn't think privacy was a big factor there. So that's a reason. It was really to help the neighborhood that we wanted to have a shorter fence.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful for me just to know, the thinking behind it and the reasoning, and then I can discuss that with the committee. Okay, let me see other clarifying questions that I had. What is the color for the metal roof? I see that it's called out as the standing seam metal roof, and I see the cut sheet, but I didn't see which color is being selected.
Do you remember the color on the roof? What did we put on there for the roof? It was a darker gray. Galvalume roof. It's a darker gray. I don't know why we don't have one on the colored on the sheet with the products on it. It should be.
Okay, so
The darker gray is the
so,
best.
so it would be something darker than like this slate gray or the pewter.
I'd say more like the slate gray.
Okay. Are you okay with that being captured as part of the documents?
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah. Yes, we are fine.
Okay. So let me just let's see. Does that one list the SRI? That should be fine for SRI, I would imagine. So we, with whatever our letter gets written up, we'll make sure to capture the whatever specification is ultimately selected. What color did we say that was? Something
Slate gray.
Slate gray. Thank you.
Right.
That would need to meet the SRI. What is it? There's a range that it has to be.
It's called the SRI.
Yeah, it's a solar reflective index, I think is what that stands for. Okay, let's see. Another question I had, I see this note about the stacked stone here. The only place that I saw stacked stone was at this location. Is that the only location?
For the chimney?
Yeah, it's not a real chimney, obviously, but the chimney expression. Is that the only place that we have the El Dorado stone veneer?
That's the only place on the building itself. There is the same stone is down at the lower level of the exterior stairway. The patio and the low wall around it would be the same stone.
Okay,
The
so that's
lunch.
going to be like a coordinating paver.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let me see if I have any other questions. Was it intentional to have glass for most of the guardrails and then cable rail, or I don't know, is this cable rail or is it welded metal for the entry stair?
That's cable on the stairway.
Okay, was that intentional? And if so, can you explain the reasoning behind the two different types of railings?
Just different kinds of applications. The stairway is a different element on the building than the decks are. The glass, of course, would cut down on the wind a little bit.
Mhm.
So that's the reasoning.
I think that's all I had for clarifying questions. So I'm happy to navigate to whatever sheets the other committee members need me to.
Thank you.
Would you, can I jump in, Beverly, or do you want to go next?
No, go right ahead.
Could you jump to 2.02? So it looks like there is, I'm trying to blow it up, but I'm not the one showing the screen. Is there a portion of the roof here that exceeds the 28-foot limit? Is the small dashed line the 28-foot limit?
I'm having trouble understanding it.
Looking on the lower drawing, actually, the high roof peak is shown at 72'3", and there's this smaller dashed line below that. Does that smaller dashed line indicate the 28-foot height limit? basically the question is part of the
Yes,
roof
that's the
over
height
28
limit
foot?
for the west face.
So is a portion of the structure over the 28-foot height limit and in that discretionary zone?
No, it gets a little tricky because the height limit or the height of the house, the grade is different on one side than the other.
Okay.
It's obviously
we're-
higher on the east side than it is the west side. So that's your
Okay.
28-foot line on that one, you can see.
Okay, so it's just that I'm seeing things that are further or closer in
Yeah.
to the grade
It can be a
line.
little confusing because the line is relative to the plane
Uh-huh.
that you're looking at.
Yeah, that's why I was checking it with the sections. and
Yeah,
the
thank you.
elevations, yeah.
And then could you go to the landscape plan?
Let me know if you want me to zoom in anywhere.
Okay, no, this is good. I think the legend was not showing up on my version, but I see it there here in your copy. I had the same cable rail, glass rail question. The front entry, is the front entry covered by the stair?
Yeah, it is.
Yep.
You can see
and
it's
then-
overhead here. This is all overhead.
In the 3D view,
There's a 3D view.
Page 1.
yeah.
Okay.
It appears that those two roofs are hitting each other. Is that just an error in the rendering, or can you clarify what's going on where those roof lines come together?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you very well. Clarify the roofs,
It looks in the rendering as though the two sloped roofs kind of hit yes, right there where her mouse is, as if the eave of one smacks into the eave of the other. Is that the case, or is that just?
well, I think the roof on the left would go up against the rake on the other roof.
So they are intended to touch.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's it for me for clarifying questions.
Okay, and I asked my question, which related to the first drawings and these drawings. That was my only question, other than what you've noted.
Oh, there was one more thing I wanted to ask. This rendering is of the rear of the property, yeah? Is
Mhm.
there a 3D view of the front?
Well, we may have it on the computer. It's obviously not in the plan set, but
I wondered the same
we
thing. I
we
think that
only show the,
the front view is a little bit more appropriate for everybody else viewing the project, right?
yeah. We can get one for you. I know we have, like I said, we have it in the computer, but it didn't get into the plan set.
Okay, I don't think it's a requirement. I was just curious why we're seeing the back instead of the front. Sorry, what's next, Beverly? Public comment?
Okay,
That's the end of my question,
so-
officially.
Are we done with all questions?
Yeah, I think that's it for
Yeah.
current questions.
Okay, Glenn, could you open it up to any questions or comments from the public?
Yeah, sure. So per the chair, we're now opening public comment for item number 1. No correspondence was received for this item. And now I will ask those members of the public who wish to comment to click the raise hand feature to raise your hand to speak on this agenda item. I will lower your hand after you speak. Those joining by telephone can press *9 to raise and unraise your hand. Pressing *6 will mute or unmute your microphone once you are given permission to speak. I see one raised hand now, and now that's so Miss Debbie Pizzle, please accept this request, unmute your microphone and begin speaking. Please begin by stating your name, address, and email address for the record.
Are they unmuted, Glenn?
No, not yet. I
How
just,
about now?
oh yeah,
You hear it?
we can hear you now.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. Now, can I have your name, address, and email address for the record?
Sure. Debbie Pizzo, 165 Reef Point Road, Moss Beach. And my email address is dpnopc@gmail.
Okay, thank you very much. And you may begin speaking.
Okay, well, I have my husband here, Steve, same address, same email.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, go ahead,
Oh.
Steve.
Yes, Glenn, I know I sent you a few emails in the past. Our main concern was obviously privacy. And we had questioned why those poles were moved 2 or 3 times. And the other, my biggest concern is being that the house is all windows. How are you gonna minimize that where they're not gonna have a direct view into our windows? Because right now, they could see into almost every room in our house. So that was my main concern, was the privacy and the minimizing or mitigating the direct views into our house with their windows.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, we're
Because,
having trouble with our
yeah.
iPad. Thank you.
Because the story poles originally put up, they still had a direct view into our house, not as many rooms. Then we noticed it was moved further, I guess, east and north, and that made it worse. That gave them access to almost every room in our house. And then the poles got moved back again. So we're a little confused on the movement of the poles to begin with. But like I said, the main concern we have is privacy. We can look into their house and they can look directly into our house. We're talking about like the master bathroom, the bedroom, the office. So,
Would you mind pulling up the site plan? Sorry, so that we can see this while they're speaking about it.
Yeah, I was actually already looking at that, sorry.
Thanks.
This is the parcel here, this is the entry gate. And then this is the house that is in question.
I see.
And the
This is
site
that,
plan?
this is that fence, well, no, this is the fence I was talking about that's falling down.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is,
Yes.
it's falling
Yeah,
down. My husband put my
yes,
poles up to keep it up.
those braces were there when we moved in.
And we put
Few of
another
them
one.
fell down and I had them put them back up again because the fence was almost falling into the roadway there. So yeah, that fence is in bad shape.
Yeah,
And it's
I
not a
agree.
it's not a 4-foot fence. That's a 6-foot fence at least. So I appreciate that one of you did come out and look at it because yes, it's been there for probably many years.
I'm just wondering, I guess we can, there's no, is there any indication of the adjacent structure on the site plan there?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. So this
There,
is-
yeah, we're
we
one,
go.
yeah.
Yeah, this
And
is
can
the
you
fence
just-
that I was
Can you
concerned
just
about.
point out on there where your bedroom is, where your bathroom is?
I don't know how I can point, but
Let's see, if I hover my mouse, you could say, stop. We'll do red light, green light.
well, I've got
Like
this.
what's this room here? What's over here?
Can I get rid of this?
No.
I've got the square right in the front of my house. That says the host would like you to speak. Stay muted or unmuted. I
Yeah,
can't
this
get,
is our iPad.
yeah, see, we're on an iPad. We're not on a
We're
computer.
old antiquated people.
And I can't get that off the screen, but
So the corner of your house closest to the property where this new,
yeah, I could see your mouse a little bit.
Yeah,
It's-
what part of your house is that?
Yes, especially the bathroom. The bathroom is really near the corner, just a few feet off the corner. And then there's a master walk-in closet that's right at the corner.
It has a window, obviously,
It has a window.
and a bedroom.
And then I have an office that's a little further north, which is a big window, and they've got a view into that
Into the living
and
room.
into the living room.
And
The
where-
biggest
And
view,
family rooms.
yeah, the biggest view is the master bath.
And
That's
that's on
the
the
guy,
second story?
Sure.
and especially having a second story, it's, you're gonna be able to see into everything.
So your master bathroom is on the first floor or the second floor?
One story house.
One story house, okay, you're on the first floor.
Yeah,
Okay.
ours is,
Okay, thanks. Sorry, that helps me think about what we can do.
I have a couple of pictures I took today that I'm trying to get off my phone,
I can't.
and
get that off.
uploaded so I can share them to you, so you can see the windows, and we can talk about that in relation to that when we go into discussion.
So, Katie, the fence line that you said is falling down, was actually the 90-degree.
It's
That
this,
one.
it's this fence. actually,
Right.
And that's their house.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
No,
That's not the fence that's falling down.
that's not the fence that's
It's like
falling
more
down.
over here,
It's the one
right?
on Reef.
No,
It's the
go to
one,
the left.
Is it right here?
No,
We need to get a computer.
it's the red area fence that's
Yeah.
falling down.
That's that fence in that photo though.
no, that fence you saw that fence is only a few years old.
This
The,
one?
the one that's falling down is the one that's on Reef,
On the
on
street.
the north
On the
side.
street,
the
yeah.
Yeah, on this,
Oh.
right there.
You
right
replaced?
there.
Yeah,
Okay.
right there. That one is falling down. That's the one that's all braced.
Okay, yeah, that's right, okay.
And it's about 6 feet.
Okay, well, that's my good typing skills going on right there. I guess the upside is that they're saying that they would replace this.
Mhm.
Okay, so yeah, I don't know if it's helpful, but here's some photos that I took when I was out there.
Yeah, very helpful.
So can you see
Yeah,
my
wait.
photos?
Yeah, I could see an X. That's where the master bath is right there.
Okay, and
And
then
then
this
right
is the
to the left,
closet.
that's the closet.
Okay,
And then if you go, the bigger window there is the office.
okay,
And all that they can see are all.
And
they
if
can-
you go, and the office is adjacent with the
Living
living
room,
room. And
too.
if you go way to the right, you can see in the family, there you go.
That's part of the family room.
Yeah.
Or area. So I mean, they get pretty much, especially like I said, with the second level, it's kind of hard not to, not to hide it. Like I said, how can you offset windows when the house itself, their house is all windows?
yeah, it's definitely tough. And it's tough because your windows are definitely facing the way that, the opposite way that theirs would face to optimize views. So I definitely can see how the privacy is gonna be tricky with this one.
Yeah, well, for both, because if they can see into us, we can see into theirs then.
Mhm.
But I don't know which rooms we can see into there. So like I
Yeah.
said, the main concern is a master bathroom and the bedroom.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
wide open.
Yeah, this is,
It's upper and lower levels.
well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you've got the fence and that'll help a bit on the lower level, but then all of this glass is all facing that way. Mhm. Okay.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Was there, and then I was wondering too, the reason that it was moved, when the story poles were first put up, it was more to the south and then they were moved to the north and then back to almost originally where they were.
Do you know anything about that, Ed?
Yes, they were,
See, I'm getting things on here.
where the story poles are now was the original position. And we moved it to the north because when they were up, we could see there was a problem, perhaps both from Arbor Lane and for the people on the west. So we moved it back then to the original position.
Okay, so when you
Toward-
moved, when you
towards
moved it
south.
to the, when you moved it to the north, Ed, it was a privacy for the people on Arbor Lane.
Views from
That's
Arbor
another-
Lane.
That's
You-
another block over. It was moving it to the north was worse, and they could see the whole bottom level, even going up to my second and the split level.
Well, that was the other reason for it too, would be to
Oh, that's what I was
utilize
curious
that once
because
they're up.
I was wondering whose privacy, because it was worse. And Arbor Lane's as a street over, we're right on, we're next door here.
No, I understand that. I
So,
understand.
No, that answer, that was, my
Yeah.
husband, I was confused. Because why would it be moved for the privacy? Certainly wasn't for us.
Well, no, it's for both. It was for both reasons.
so they were moved back to the original because it was better for everybody?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and we tried to move it as far back to the east, towards
Right.
Reed Point Road, so as to mitigate some of the privacy issues.
No, that's fine. I was just
Yes.
curious. I was just curious because
Okay.
the arbor, and that's another street over, so I didn't understand that.
Yeah, moving it east was a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
So we
that would
tried
put the
to-
house,
Yeah,
put the
we-
house further away from our house, but
yes.
but
We gotta
unfortunately,
find-
I
Yeah.
think we did move it closer to the east, a few feet, right up against the setback line. For the second position, when we moved it back to the original position, we also moved it to the east a few feet.
And when you're looking at it from the second floor, I mean, obviously we can look, depending on the views, but the roof of the house on 165 pretty much, helps with protecting the privacy, because you cannot look, when you're looking at that angle, and, obviously we'll have to confirm what I'm saying, but when you're looking at that angle, you cannot really look through the windows. And we're happy to increase the fence to like 8 feet, if that would help.
Okay, so
Mhm.
I think we have the information, Debbie. So
can I interrupt one quick second?
just one more. Yes.
Okay. Way back when it started, I brought up an issue on grading. Would that be a time to talk about that as well?
What about
What
the
the problem I had, what the problem was in their, let's see, that would be the northwest corner of our properties. Must be a low spot, because when it rains, and it rains pretty hard, days after, water is flowing underneath the fence, and all that water flows onto my property. So I had raised that originally with Glenn in the first email, that I was, I wanted to just raise that there seems to be a low spot there, and then all that water rushes onto my property. If that would be addressed during the grading phase.
Well, it's about the drainage.
Right.
The
correct,
civil.
Yeah, so I'll jump in on this for a second, Beverly, if that's okay.
Yes.
So basically the ordinances and the requirements for San Mateo County require that any impervious surface that's created by new construction, for instance, for this home, that disruption of rainwater and everything that would shed off of the roofs has to all be contained and captured on site. So what's happening here, this is the drainage plan. And there's a detention basin that's been designed over here. And all of these blue lines would be underground pipe that direct all of their rainwater into this detention basin. And then that percolates slowly to prevent the water from shedding onto your property.
Okay,
Good, thank you.
good, thank you.
Sure.
'Cause
Does
that's,
that help answer your question?
It
yes,
certainly does. Thank
yes,
you.
Yeah, because it, like I said, on a heavy rain, it really starts flowing for days afterwards.
Yeah, I mean,
So
there's
it
gonna
must
still
be
be
a-
the regular rainwater and natural topography that's happening. There is going to still be some of that happening where they're not grading, but the disruption that's created by this home and the grading and the lack of pervious surfaces, that's all being addressed with the detention basin.
Okay,
Thank you.
Sure.
So to be clear, it's not clear that your current issues will be resolved, but
I think it'll help a little bit because at least that amount of footprint of
Yes.
water that's currently shedding will
Right.
be,
will be
slowed down.
managed.
Yeah, so it should improve it slightly, but it's not going to likely solve all of the problems if all of the topography is naturally sloping toward a low point.
that's what I'm afraid of, yes.
Yeah, but it certainly won't make it worse. If anything, it should improve it slightly.
Well, if I can jump in here, I'll check with the civil engineers and make sure that everything drains back to the detention basin. And if we need to put a yard drain somewhere to catch anything at a low spot, we'll do that and make sure that it goes back into the detention basin. Nothing will leave the site.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Glenn?
Yeah,
Are there
so-
any other members of the public?
Yeah, I'll do the final call. So now I've called upon all raised hands for speaking on this item. For those on Zoom, are there any other persons who wish to speak on this item? Item number 1, if so, I will provide a few more seconds in case there are others that would like to raise their hand to speak on this item. As a reminder for those joining by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. So Beverly, there are no more raised hands for this item. Please indicate if you would like to close the public.
Yes, please post public comment. And we are at a point where we will have a discussion, Rebecca, Katie, and myself, and maybe some further questions for Ed. Okay, who wants to start?
Not it.
What did you say? Not it?
I said not it. Yeah, but Beverly, do you want to start this time?
I would like to bring up the issue of the quantity of windows, glass, and glass treatment, particularly facing the neighbors and the ocean. Ed, do you have a treatment specified for the glass in the windows?
You mean a coating of some kind or?
A coating to protect it from the wildlife and to reduce the glare?
We haven't specified that, but that's certainly possible.
Yes. Do we have a recommendation? So the purpose would be to avoid having wildlife crash into the birds, in particular, crash into this amount of glass coverage.
I think the other secondary thing that would be happening is that there's going to be quite a lot of glare and reflection off of these windows to the neighboring
Right.
properties. And you know what we've found, we've heard in recent project reviews that there are coatings out there that are bird safe that basically make it so that the birds won't crash into the windows. I don't know if that has any impact to the glare and the reflectivity specifically of like low E glass, but I know that there can be a lot of damage from the reflection of low E glass. And so having this amount of it facing primarily the directions where the view and of course the sun will be, it could be problematic. It could cause glare. It can also cause property damage. So that's something we obviously want to be thinking about when we're reviewing this.
Right. So amongst the architects, I'm concerned about the amount of glass, particularly on the west elevations.
From a privacy perspective or from a solar heat gain perspective, or?
From both, privacy perspective first, and the solar heat gain, the glare. Yeah.
I'm less concerned about it on the lower levels.
Yeah.
Because obviously we've got fences for more privacy. I do think that higher than a 4-foot fence would be a good idea on at least this side, because that faces another house and we've obviously got a lot of glass over there. So I think that would provide more privacy for both homeowners.
Right.
6-foot
so
fence.
yeah, I think that fence would be well suited to be a little bit taller, like a 6-foot fence. The building level is quite a bit above grade, so they're already going to be like 3 feet up at that point. So that was one thing that could potentially help. That would help with the height. Obviously, I understand the desire to want to be high enough to optimize views. So at that point, even if there's a 4-foot fence, that's going to be like here,
Right.
right? So there is an overhang, and I think that's going to help a bit with some of the reflectivity and the sun not being directly, in contact with the glass. But those are, up here, there's obviously a lot of glass and it's all facing the neighboring homes. And then we've got glass guardrails all the way around also. And I'm not going to get into my concerns yet. I want to make sure Beverly gets to speak. But yeah, I share those concerns.
Right. So looking at the site plan, you're talking about the fence in between the two homes, which is currently at 7 feet.
Well, the one between 165 and this property is 7 feet, but the one
Right.
between 150 and this property, there is no fence currently. And they're proposing a 4-foot fence, so like a neighbor fence.
Right.
So if anything, I would say that should be 7 feet to match this one. And then that's going to help a little bit, particularly with the floor elevation being 3 feet above grade.
Right, but is that the elevation? Is that the west elevation, that one?
Well,
No.
this is west, but you can see this elevation has
Which,
a lot of glass too. And then these windows right here and the 2 bedrooms on the lower level,
oh, that's the south elevation.
they
Yes,
can look
correct.
right into that house.
Right, right. Okay.
And vice
There's
versa.
really no windows at 150 on that side. Just one little tiny window.
No, that's the south elevation.
So that's this one over here.
There, you can see that house on the left side there. That's about the only window in that.
Oh, you mean the window in the house?
The house at
The
150.
existing house.
I think I was more concerned about this house than I was the other one. So the only picture I really have of that one is that corner window.
Yeah.
I thought I took more pictures. Apologies.
But that's the only window.
Mhm. Yeah, so maybe it's not as much of a concern for you. So yeah, as far as the solar glare and privacy, I'm less concerned on the lower level personally, and I'm definitely more concerned on the upper level. But even with this building, with this floor elevation being 3 feet above grade, that's definitely not helping with the privacy concerns for this house, for 165.
Okay, so that was my main issue,
Mhm.
were the windows. Rebecca, Katie?
Rebecca, you want to go next?
Sure, yeah. The other concern I had, you can stay right where you are there, was the prominence of the garage roof form,
Mm-hmm.
which I think I saw you also had a note on.
Mm-hmm.
It looks almost black in this rendering. I think the slate color is better as far as I'm concerned than how dark this looks here. But that was one thing I wanted to bring up for discussion. And then also just wondering if there's sufficient diversity in the palette.
In the what?
In
Palette?
the exterior materials palette. So it's all kind of one color.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a very small amount of stone facing and the roof, which is visible. So I guess that's 3. But I don't know, I guess I just wanted to bring up for discussion whether we wanted to see more stone facing or 2 tones of stucco or anything like that. But I think that those concerns are, I agree, are small compared to the privacy concern for the neighbor, which has to do with the glazing, but I think also the presence of 2nd floor patios back there facing their house.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So yeah, you've already been able to kind of catch a glimpse at the things that I had been thinking when I reviewed the project. I have similar concerns to Beverly and Rebecca. I was concerned about the dominance of this roof form. Obviously from ground level, you won't be seeing it in a pure elevation form, but the slope of this roof was steeper than the other roofs. And I didn't realize that that was intended to be storage until Ed mentioned that this is supposed to be storage.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think storage is a very good reason for a house to be dominated by the roof as your curb appeal, personally. But at least that helps me understand a little bit more why it was, a 3 and 12 pitch compared to the others being, almost, it didn't say, what's on the roof plan? I saw it somewhere.
You looking for the roof plan?
Yeah, I think
Yes.
it's the site plan. One of them showed the pitch of the roof. I saw it at one point. Now I can't find it.
Do you know what the pitch of the roof of that is, Ed?
No, I don't. It should
Here we go.
show up
Okay,
in
it's on
the in an elevation,
So these are like 3/4 of
east
an inch
elevation.
to
Yeah,
a
there it
foot.
is. Yeah. 3.5 and 1.
And then this one is a little bit steeper, and then this one is 3.5 to 12. So yeah, I shared that concern that I don't really think that that is the best thing to see when you're approaching the project, particularly that amount of contrast. But some contrast is good, and I think I agree is needed for the project. And with this being actually more of a medium gray like this, it's even less contrast.
Yeah,
So I don't want this to be the dominant feature, but contrast is helpful. I had concerns about the inconsistency of glass and cable rail together. I don't really know how I feel about that. But also the dominance of this stair. So
Yeah.
there's two entrances happening, and I understand the reasoning behind wanting to be able to come in on the ground level to go to the bedrooms and to put things in the dumbwaiter. And then, you know, having this whole ornamental stair purely for the purpose of having guests be able to arrive at the top level. I feel like it's competing a bit, because which one wants to be the entry? And if this is meant to be the entrance for guests, this is very understated, and the guidelines definitely call out to have the entrance be an architectural feature. It's kind of one of the ways that you do wayfinding. So from a wayfinding standpoint, I find that sort of problematic, and it's this big sort of feature, and you can definitely see it more over here. Look at how much it's floating and just sort of suspended in front of the house.
yeah,
That felt like an afterthought, and like it was added on to me. It didn't feel like it was integrated in the design. It didn't feel like it was contributing to the wayfinding of an actual entry. And it felt like it was also not consistent with the other guardrail material. So those were some concerns that I had. I do have concerns about the solar reflectiveness of this roof at that pitch. There's houses that are opposite this that are on Arbor Lane, I believe. And in the morning, the southern sun is going to be probably reflecting off that right into their houses. So that's a little bit worrisome, but of course you've got all the other glass where that will also happen. I do agree with Rebecca that the color palette is lacking to me, the material and color palette. I like the stone, but I feel like having it only in this one location is sort of a disservice to the design. I think that the texture is necessary, if nothing else. If it's going to be a darker shade of the same gray, at least having the texture would definitely help with breaking up the design and having it not feel quite as monotonous. I do think that I appreciate that the house doesn't exceed the maximum height, but I do see that the house is being pushed up 3 feet from grade, and that's not integrating it into the site. So I think that that is not as sensitive relating to other people's views and privacy. I don't think that it's necessary for the house to be built up quite that much. And yeah, I think that's all I had. And other than I know I mentioned already the fence, whether or not a 4-foot fence makes sense, but hearing that there are privacy concerns from the neighbor where all of this public glass is facing, I do think that we do need to give that some attention, because it's not like which way is the window facing, it's nothing but windows. And because it is set back down to the east as much as possible, the reality is that it's actually not at an angle where the privacy is not intruded. They're far back enough that they can really look straight into the windows, and likewise, they can look right into your living spaces too. Those are kind of my big picture concerns. I think materials and colors are something that can be addressed fairly easily. The amount of glass is a bigger issue.
Katie, I'm just trying to read what you're saying. Do you feel like you could support the amount of glass if the first floor plate height came down, so that the whole glass, that all of that glass dropped, say 2 feet, or do you think it's still problematic regardless?
I mean, my gut is telling me that it's still a bit
Yeah.
problematic. This is a difficult space to actually even lay out furniture in without having some solid walls. The fireplace is here, so, you know, depending on how you use your spaces, maybe they would be putting a TV above the fireplace, and, you know, you'd have to circulate around sofas.
And all the furniture would be
settees.
facing away from the view.
Yeah. So I feel like from a space planning standpoint, the way that you're going to want to use the room, like you might want to have this be like more solid, and you can have a fireplace and a TV there and be facing that and the view. something along those lines. I'm not trying to, redesign or prescribe how you would live in the home, but the amount of glass that's there seems excessive to the point where it's even possibly problematic in how you would live in the home. So I think the 3 feet elevation increase is sort of, adding to that concern. But I do think that it's a little bit too much glass.
Yeah, I share your concern, and I wonder whether just thinking about mitigating measures, whether the glass guardrail then also reinforces that, and if a more opaque guardrail might provide more privacy, especially actually for the people in this home.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's possible to maybe do a combination of opaque and glass or opaque and cable rail, because I can understand why you would want to be able to be sitting and looking out at the view. So I think if it was very strategic, you've got these view corridors that were mentioned facing this way and this way. And it's like, okay, well then why is all of this glass? And that's really what's facing their private spaces. So I think that there's moves that could be taken that would sort of find a compromise, and it would even give the homeowner better space planning to be able to use the spaces in ways where they could place furniture up against the wall. They could have a TV, they could have artwork, they could put a bar and make boozy drinks, whatever. So I do think that if they were to really kind of go out there and get a ladder and, get out and stand right here where that is and have a ladder put up and see where is the primary views and try to reduce the glass to those areas so that the other areas that aren't as primary of the view can be a little bit more opaque and a little more opaque and more respectful of the neighboring home.
Yeah, we want to be good neighbors to Steve and Debbie for sure. I don't know how yet. I think we should be, we are comfortable probably doing some of remove an amount of glass to deal with some of the privacy concerns. Structurally keep the same one, but we can make sure that we can try and find out a solution where it's not so much glass, and also find, opaque it without glass, so we can address Steve and Debbie's concern.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that you're open to that and that you really do want to make sure that this is kind of a harmonious home for you and for the neighbors. That's good. And sometimes it takes a hearing first for us to kind of work through that and hear the neighbors and see what's needed. As there's opportunities for more solid wall, I think there's opportunities for more material or contrast to help break up the massing also and provide a more balanced composition.
So a few things, like if you go back to the west side of the elevation, so Katie, you'd made a good point, is our views are actually in the first 4 windows that you see on the left, which is that one. And then the next 4 windows are like facing the patio. Then the next 3 windows are above the kitchen. And then the next 4 windows are like the master bedroom. So what we can do is we can...
Yeah, let's listen to get Ed's input.
Yeah, 1 second. So we'll get it more like, we can maybe reduce it, or we can change the coding. So that way, we can, so accordingly, we can make some changes there. And then on the side facing the north, to address your comment on the stone wall, one other area where you go up the stairs, we could put some stone over there on that blank wall. Yes, that area. So that way we can improve the appearance and we can add more texture and something else. But the reason why we had the stairs with the guardrails was, just for architectural, just to appear, different, and wasn't really an afterthought. I mean, we
Because
had
they're
it
from the
right
day one. Yeah.
From day one.
So we just wanted to, when we have visitors, I mean, they're not going to be coming for first floor, they want most of the time they'll come for, I mean, first of all, whenever they come. And it's a lot easier to receive them on the second floor because, you know, this is the ocean front house. It'll give a little more aesthetic view. That was a thought process.
Yeah, I think that having this be the primary entrance architecturally, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But architecturally, it's not being expressed that way. So you see a door
There's
here,
a door at the top of the stairs.
but then you don't see the door up here. And so I think that if there's a way to emphasize that this is the entrance architecturally, like if that's just a blank wall of stone, it still doesn't really tell you that that's the entrance either. But I like the direction that you're thinking. I like that you're kind of considering how all these things can apply to both the wayfinding and privacy concerns and creating a little bit more shadow and texture and contrast. You know, stone is one of those materials that feels heavy. And so the only place we see it right now is on a second story, where, you know, typically you would feel stone being more on the base of a project. And then maybe it would be the base and above for a chimney expression, but it's kind of going the opposite of how a material is really applied normally.
It seems like there's an opportunity also at the lower entry where there's a flat wall that you
This
could
wall?
apply stone. No, sorry, on the, there by the front entry, which.
Yeah, like maybe if this was a double height stone
Mhm.
expression and there was a door there somehow that really announced like this is the entry or something, but
Yeah, because part of what I was feeling too is that the entry on the first floor, which I viewed as the primary entry when I looked at the drawings, feels a little pinched by the angles, and then it feels kind of like covered by the stair. And so it wasn't expressing entry to me in the way that I wanted, but I like what you're saying about if really the primary entry is up top, then I think all of those, concerns are addressed by making that signify entry more fully. And then I think that in terms of the on the back with the windows, I would say, I mean, I don't think that coatings is going to be sufficient. I think that eliminating some windows on those interior sections that really face the neighbors and not the view, or at a minimum raising the sill height so that they're not floor to ceiling height, would help with those things. In addition
Say the second thing again, Rebecca.
Well, I
Raising
think
the
that
sill
the,
heights?
the-
Yes, so that they're not floor height, yes.
Yeah, the sills, if the sills came up, I mean, you're still looking out them. It actually improves privacy for these homeowners more than it does for their neighbors to raise the
Right.
sills. But I think that would do something. I think there's some on the right that are doors coming out of the bedroom, but in the living room, it seems great to have that big full wall of glass on the short wall that faces the view, and then to actually have more wall panel on the in-cut courtyard facing portion that faces the neighbors. That feels like that would be a big give to the neighbors to just reduce some of the windows there altogether.
Right. So Rebecca, I echo your glazing is not the solution in this case. And employing multiple methodology to reduce the size of the window openings so that it has impact, but it doesn't eliminate the view. And the entry, Katie, I agree with you. The stairs are at the moment kind of give a feel of the stairs leading to I don't know where, and that wall it seems to be calling out for the entry. I'm wondering if the standing seam metal roof below had a lesser slope to it, that you could in fact create an entry that didn't walk you right into the kitchen. You'd have to reconfigure the perimeter a little bit, but reducing the slope of that, reducing the storage, would give you a better landing to design a new entry at that level that could be seen from the front elevation.
Yeah, I mean, I think regardless of the slope of that garage roof should come down, preferably to below where that other landing is, or matching
Yes.
it is what I would do.
Yes.
I can see how Ed's positioned the door so that you have this kind of vestibule where you come in as opposed to coming in at the kitchen, and I understand how that's preferable from a circulation standpoint.
You know, if the stair just moved a little bit though, like you could come in
Yeah.
here.
Or
maybe.
even if the high cabinets that are shown in the kitchen weren't as high, so you could at least have some glazing there, kind of like.
The point being that the door would be visible in the front elevation.
Yeah, that it would actually
Yeah.
signify entry and.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
Let me jump in here for a second. What if the door, the entry door, was just to the right of the one that's shown on the plan?
Like
Around
that.
the corner?
Right in there, yeah.
Yeah,
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 and
that
that-
would make a difference.
and
yeah.
from a massing standpoint, you know, you might be able to do something to express something down here too, but from, you know, that could end up being sort of an entry feature, you know,
Mhm.
yeah.
that highlights, and it's very balanced in the position of the composition of the house too.
Yeah, we like that idea. That makes a lot of sense. That looks consistent.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
I
I would
mean, it
also
almost-
just be, while you're thinking about that, I think something to consider, I was looking at the landscape plan briefly because I was wondering if there were plantings around this, because
Mhm.
this is like right at a head knocker height. So I love floating stairs, but you also want to make sure that they're not just a big protrusion for people to like walk into also, and that maybe the landscape plan might be one opportunity for using landscaping as a barrier so that people don't bonk their heads on the stair. But, and the stair, you know, if we do change this up a bit and relocate the entry here, the stair would need to change a little bit anyway. So that might be something to take into consideration when you're thinking about it.
Mhm.
And maybe this ends up being a stone feature. Maybe it ends up being like this. Let's see, I don't use it moving that much. Maybe this ends up looking like a stone expression, where it captures the fireplace and it all speaks to entry or something. You know, obviously, stone
2
isn't.
stories instead of just a
Yeah, having the stone be only in one location feels a bit arbitrary and less cohesive, but also, you know, again, what I was mentioning earlier, that stone is a bit more heavy as a natural material. And so having it on an upper level and not carried down to the base feels a little bit architecturally awkward to me personally.
That's a good idea too. We like that.
So I guess what I'm wondering at this point, I think we've given a lot of feedback on some concerns and some kind of big broad brush, you know, suggestions on things that could help. Do you think that you have enough guidance to be able to work on this, or do you need us to kind of like dig in a little bit more with specific areas?
No, I have plenty of guidance.
We have also
And
taken,
they're all very good ideas. And let's jump to the roof over the garage. One of the problems with that is it's obviously showing too dark here in the elevation. And it would be much more the color, the slate gray that we talked about for the fascia.
Yeah, it was gonna be the same as this.
And it can be lowered, and you're exactly right. It was a little steeper there just to create that storage space underneath it. And it can be, the slope can be dropped down.
Yeah, would you say, Ed, drop it below the floor joist of the deck height
Or to match that.
or to match?
Does that feel too
That's
far?
pretty low. I don't know. I'd have to see how that actually looks. But
It
that's-
is. I think that's what we're shooting for,
To hit that band?
yeah.
I think that would be optimal.
It'd be pretty shallow if it was down right at, so the back of or the high point of the roof is at the floor level.
What's the height of the garage?
Well, the door is 7 feet and the fascia would be about at 8 feet.
The line that you just drew on the other drawing, can you mirror it and see how it compares to the slope of the primary roof?
Of course I can.
Thank
I'm
you.
I'm gonna be all cheeky and then it's not gonna work. You just watch. So this is like 8'3" in here. This is pretty darn tall. Let me go back to the other sheet.
But let's think about that a little bit, because if we lower the house 3 feet,
Mhm.
garage basically stays where it is.
Right.
So
So,
Look at that, it won't
that's a
flip.
good point. I think we want to be loose enough in our language to indicate, you know, what we're looking for, but to give you the flexibility to address it different ways. Because we talked about lowering the whole thing a little bit at the beginning, and then we kind of moved on to other concerns. And I guess I'm kind of want to throw it out to Beverly and Katie, whether you think that an overall lowering is something, it should be a condition or a suggestion.
I think most of these are all suggestions because we are including them. They're all recommendations, and the basic philosophy is clear. So I'm if it's okay with you, I'm going to list them all as suggestions, and with a note that a general note requiring a reduction in windows, and and the implementation of which would be suggestions. So I'd like to suggest to reduce the slope of the garage roof to the floor, the deck floor joist. I'd like to suggest to stone to be applied in 2-story heights. I'd like to suggest that the stair be moved to the right to improve the front elevation and entry, and then the intentions will be the requirements.
Great.
So if the first floor plate, which is now 3 feet from grade, is lowered, I mean, that may only give you more options, Ed, you know, for how you get there.
I think Ed's point was that then that would make the roof pitch of the garage even shallower, which I don't want to discourage.
Well, how about
the whole house?
how about lowering the house 3 feet and having the roof on the garage the same slope as the other roofs
So
on the house?
Ed, I would prefer not to lower the house. We don't have problem lowering the grade of the garage. That's not a problem. I would prefer to keep it the way it is right now.
Okay.
Just change the slope of the garage top.
Okay.
It does look like what Katie has sketched there is pretty close, pretty similar to the other primary.
Yeah, I think so. And the interesting thing is, if you were to lower the other floors, like the garage would stay the same. This does not change.
Right, so it doesn't help us with that mass of the garage in front. So.
Well, it does. Like if that slope is down lower, then like, well, I guess if this came down, yeah,
I mean,
the belly
lower
band,
the
it wouldn't
floor plate.
necessarily align with the belly band anymore.
Right.
But yeah, this part of the garage can kind of stay where it is, and then you'd want to reduce the slope down anyway, because these windows would be coming down with all of this massive coming down.
Yeah,
So
so
they are under the height limit, so I feel like, and if they are not interested in lowering the whole floor plate, I think that can still be fine as long as the privacy concern is addressed.
Yeah, I agree. I would leave that as a
Right.
suggestion. I'm okay with that floor level being where it is if there's big gestures made on the privacy concern.
so it's mainly stair color palette. Do you want to talk about color?
I think that there's more contrast would be really helpful. You know, we've got one main body color and one trim color, and then there's the accent of the windows and the railing. There's this one little bit of stone. So at a minimum, you know, like I said, when it's only in one location, it tends to feel a bit arbitrary. So I think the stone is the easy option for something to add some contrast and some shadow lines and texture, understanding though that that is an expensive option. So if the applicant wanted to incorporate a different material in addition to the stucco, That's an option. Another color is an option. Bringing in some warmth with natural wood tones is an option. There's a lot of things that they could explore. I don't really want to be prescriptive, but I do think that the palette currently is a bit monotonous and needs a little bit more.
So does the applicant understand that whatever is added wouldn't be in small areas? It would either carry 2 stories or carry across a broadscape, either.
Yes,
Something kind of compositionally appropriate.
Mhm.
There is an opportunity with the decks and the belly bands going all the way across to have a darker stucco color on the first floor. That may be something you've already looked at and rejected.
Sure.
I'm not sure, but I think, yeah, there's a number of ways to.
So that's totally personal choice, as long as it's understood that, you know, it would be a fairly broad brush
Mhm.
stroke, either 2-story materials or full plain color / materials. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I
we
think-
understand that. I like the, you know, the stone going across 2 stories.
Mhm.
Then to improve the contrast, if you go back to the 3D image,
Right.
you know, where you see the roof, you know, what we could do is just slightly increase the contrast of that,
Sure.
you know, the roof, you know, that,
Yeah.
yeah. And then make it a higher, you know, a difference. So that way we can, and maybe, you know, slightly different tone as well
Okay.
of color, like a warmer color that, like you suggested.
Are you saying to increase the thickness of the fascia?
Not the thickness, but a different color. So you have
Yes.
contrast.
Good.
Mhm.
Okay, and then spec that color, of course, and
Yeah.
spec the stone material. And with the reduction of the windows, you will have more stucco facade. So you might want to introduce beyond what we've talked about with the stone and the fascia. You might want to introduce either the fascia color on the vertical of the increased stucco, or, you know, you'll just see as the windows are reduced, what you're dealing with.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity for using colors and materials to kind of create a really nice composition with the massing that you have going on here, especially if we're able to reduce some of the glass back here. You know, like even if, you know, let's say it ended up being something like that's solid and is a complementary color or texture, then this sort of is in contrast to the horizontality of the design, and it really kind of starts to balance it. So that's just like one example of how you can kind of use the solid wall as architectural features to balance the horizontal moves and, you know, provide some contrast, provide shadows. There's a lot of opportunity. I think there's really good bones here, but there's, you know, some suggestions that I think will really make a big difference in the privacy and the execution and the wayfinding and all of that, helping it really be cohesive.
Yeah, so what we are at a high level just thinking is the second block of 4 windows, maybe make them 2. And then I like the idea of stone on the side, not really a different color.
Mhm.
And then the same thing with the master bedroom windows, make it 2 instead of 4. And then, you know, add some stone features or something there.
Mhm.
And the railing of the deck, you may want to pay attention to that a bit.
Yeah, so I think we've probably given a lot of different options that you can work on with Ed and you know, refine the design. Ed has a lot of experience working with this committee and with the guidelines, and I'm confident that he'll be able to come up with some really great options that you can consider.
I do have one more question. Rebecca, Katie, I'm not sure, did you see the garage is glass panes as well?
Yes, although is the spec on those call out if that glass is opaque or translucent?
Can you tell us about that,
There are
Anne?
those options.
Pardon me, I didn't understand.
Glass
glass.
panes on the garage door, opaque.
That would be a
or-
frosted glass on the garage door.
Okay, do you want to pick one of these that Katie's zooming in on?
Probably the obscura.
Yeah, it would be,
Or frost, maybe.
yeah, the opaque one there.
Yeah, frost.
Okay,
Okay.
I mean, we could just say opaque. I think that's sufficient. Yeah,
Yeah, there you go.
thank you.
But I'm not calling it out on your next set because I'm not doing those drawings, Ed.
Beverly, you mentioned about the railings on the decks. What
Yes.
did you have in mind? Or you
Katie gave several suggestions. Katie, would you repeat what you suggested so I don't introduce anything?
Yeah, I mean, you could even have some panels of it be solid, you know, so it's hard to see where the break is here, but it looks like maybe like, you know, if they're going to keep this glass and this glass, for instance, then maybe this becomes solid. And then you do something similar over here. You know, and you could
Or
keep the
even
glass.
frosted, yeah.
You could do cable rail. But yeah, I think that all of it being glass is
What do
a
you-
lot of glass in combination with all of this other glass too. And again, I'm not in love with having the feature stair be one thing and the rest of the railings be another sort of translucent type of railing.
I think that with all the angles of the house and all the different elevations and perspectives on it, that introducing a lot of different materials for things like the railings it's going to get very, very busy.
Yeah, I mean, it could even be stucco. It could be as solid segments that are stucco.
What do you
Well, if
think
it's going to
if
be
it was just
stucco,
frosted?
then I really think it should all be stucco, one way or the other. Either stucco or
Depends to me,
glass
no?
or
Pardon?
cable railing, but I think it should be consistent.
Well, I think that a fully opaque rail would certainly address the privacy concerns. I mean, this isn't a thing I've seen, but potentially a frosted glass rail might be sufficient to address some of those concerns. I hear you about not wanting it to be busy.
Frosted glass.
Frosted glass would let in the light, you know, it would keep the area bright, but
It would block the wind.
it would, and the wind, it would be protect the user from the wind, and it would help with the privacy issues. Are you open to that?
For the frosted glass panels?
Mm-hmm.
Hema, Sundar?
So this is for what? Sorry, I've lost.
The railings, the deck railings up at the second level.
Okay,
What we're discussing is what that should be. And
Instead of translucent.
we talked about frosted glass instead of clear glass, which would help the privacy issue, number one. It's still a consistent material, which I think is important. I don't think it should be broken up. And it would cut down on the wind again and contributes to the privacy issue that's been brought up.
And still,
To solving that.
still allows light to
Yes.
come into the deck.
It's not. I'm not sure how it is going to resolve privacy issues, because it still, I mean, if I stand, it's the same. It's going to only 3 feet. I don't know what's the height is, right?
3'6".
Yeah. So I am 5 feet 5, right? Or me, Hema comes out. It's the same. The challenge is the same. So that's why I'm happy to consider, but I'm not sure whether
It helps the privacy issues because you'll be sitting on the deck.
Oh, I see. No, good point. Sorry, I didn't think about it. Yeah. Okay.
Most
Well, in
likely.
fact, the way
Most
we're
often.
looking at the elevations now, it looks like it's frosted because you can't see through it
Right,
to the
Mhm.
walls beyond.
right.
And I also, I mean, and again, I respect your choice about consistency, but personally, it would suffice for me if just the segments that are on the in-cut facing your neighbor got whatever treatment you select to improve the privacy. I could totally understand if you wanted transparent glass rails, on
For the view.
on the view facing short sections, and we're gonna change it in outside corner or something like that. I think we should
So
do that.
the sides that face the view, just similar to where we want to keep the glass windows, we would
Right.
like to kind of keep it as clear glass.
That makes sense.
Right, and then I understand like the patio is overlooking the neighbors, so when we sit, at least the neighbors would have privacy. So that makes sense. So really like where the patio is, just in front of that, I think, you know, we should, we can consider frosted glass.
Okay, well, we'll let you kind of explore
Mhm.
options and see it all, you know, cohesively and what works best.
All right, at this point, Ed, you know how it goes. You can ask to return. You can ask for a vote. Can you hear me, Ed?
Yeah, no, I'm listening. Why don't you
So-
run through that, Beverly, for the, for Sundar and Emma?
Oh, okay. So what happens now is the applicant can ask to return to a date to be determined depending on when the resubmission, the redesign is submitted, or you can ask for a vote. You can probably tell there are some major issues to be resolved. Asking for a vote to recommend may not go in your favor. So that's why you would ask to return to a date.
Yeah, understood. So we got some notes. I think we heard the concerns, and there are a lot of very useful input that we received today from Katie and you and others. I'm glad to see that structurally we are keeping everything intact. We're just going to be adjusting few items to address privacy. Yeah, we will go back and then resubmit it just to make sure that everybody's, you know, based on what I'm hearing, it's not going to go as is. So I would rather go and work, fix, and then it is on a hope to get this done quick, fast. So we're trying to get this. We'll go back and redo it and resubmit it.
Okay, Ed, you've been taking notes. Is that correct?
Yes.
No,
Okay,
I
then
have good notes.
everybody has. Good. Then you can get started on this ASAP to make this happen as soon as possible. The official letter will be delayed about a week.
Okay.
But you can get started right away. So I do not need to make a motion. I'll just state that the applicant has requested to return to a date to be determined. The applicant has asked for a continuance.
In order, Beverly, sorry to interrupt. In order for us to get to the agenda for next week, is there any deadline that you can provide? That way we
Glenn, what is
have
the
delayed this
actual?
project. We delayed this project by 6 months for a variety of reasons. So they're anxious to get started. Yeah.
Yeah, Glenn, what is the actual date they need to get the resubmission in order to be rescheduled for the coming month?
Yeah, so the deadline is next Friday, which is the 21st, I believe. Yeah, 21st. So if you can submit your resubmittal to me by the end of the 21st, and now I'll be able to put it on the agenda for the next meeting, the meeting in May.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
Next Friday is the 22nd.
Say that again, please.
Yeah, it's the 22nd.
Yeah, it's the 22nd, sorry. It's the 22nd Friday.
So if we have the changes in to you on the 22nd, that'll be time enough to be on the agenda in May.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
And now, once I receive the Cdrc comments, and I'll forward it to you as soon as possible. And after that, I'll work on a formal continuous letter.
Oh,
well,
excellent.
by the time you get that letter out, we'll have the elevations back into you.
Terrific.
Yeah, that's how it
Yeah.
usually goes.
They'll
right?
probably cross in the mail.
Yeah, the letter may take longer than the deadline for you.
All right, good.
And basically, the changes are just going to be to the elevation.
Right.
Oh,
we're not
that's
updating
correct.
the Floor.
No, not necessarily. It depends on what you do, what you decide to do to address the entry.
The stair.
Yep.
So Ed, we've got windows, garage, roof slope, color palette and material, front stair / entry and the deck rail.
Got it.
Got it? Okay. All right. Well, we're all good? We're all in
Yeah, thank
agreement?
you for your time today. We really appreciate it when applicants are open to feedback and suggestions that hopefully make the project stronger for everybody. So that's really very refreshing. It's nice to have you be open to some things that might improve the design and help your privacy and your neighbor's privacy. So thank you very much for that.
Absolutely.
Yes, and I'd also like to say, you have scored a beautiful property. It is in an excellent location, and I really like the way you've cited the structure for maximum excellence in living. Yeah.
Thanks.
We'll have a welcome home party and invite all of you.
That sounds great.
Steve and Debbie for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, good
Amazing.
luck. Work
All
to be
right, thank you.
done, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much.
Thanks. See you next
Yes.
time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yes, bye-bye. So on that, I think we're done. Everyone good?
Yep.
Yeah,
All
Do we need to
right,
make a motion?
make a motion to end our meeting
Second.
and roll call, Glenn?
Yeah, I'll do a roll call. And so Beverly Garrity,
Yes.
Rebecca Captain,
yes.
Katie Kosuk.
Yes, you got it that time,
I got
Glenn.
it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Now we can end this meeting today. Thank you.
Okay.
everyone.
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Thank you so
everybody.
much. Bye, everyone.
Beverly, do you need my markup? Is that helpful at all, or are you good?
That's always